I mean, you see these headline numbers like Verizon going down by 40,000 since Vestberg and planning to cut another 15,000, but I've never seen any research that shows what's happened in one particular domain, or like department rather, as a consequence of AI. And I'd be really interested to know whether these call centres that used to be full of people have really kind of gone down a lot, and instead of having 30 or 40 guys answering the phones, you've got a handful, and a lot of them are just sort of maintaining chatbots, or whether that's all just talk and it's cuts have actually happened in other areas. I have no idea, actually. But
I mean, in the research that I've seen, not in this particular research that we've conducted, but when we used to work for TM Forum, that customer service and the use of chatbots was the most common use case for AI among telcos.
Right.
That was sort of the most widespread. I guess arguably it's also the easiest, don't you?
Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. So Ian picks that moment to just do a cough straight away.
Sorry.
Thanks, Ian.
Right, get out of my system now.
Do you want a pat on the back? So you can hear from maybe a bit of third-party laughter. We're delighted to have special guest Zoe. I'll pronounce your surname for me.
Ozy de Zegwart.
Ozy de Zegwart.
Once you know, it's not that hard.
Ozy, no, it's not. You're right. I just get intimidated, but it's Belgian, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's your married name?
Yes, I chose this difficult
one. Yeah. Was your main name Gardner or
something?
So
much
that's
easier.
much simpler.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call you Gardner anyway, if only to annoy your husband. So Zoe's a good mate of ours. She works for a PR agency. She got a mention on last week's pod, actually, because she was with us in Dublin. She works for a PR agency that we've long known as CC Group, but they're now part of Hoffman.
Yes.
So do we still use CC at all?
Yes, I'm going through a bit of an identity crisis, right? So when you're talking to people in telecoms, I tend to still use...
He was waiting for that. Sorry, carry on, Zoe.
But when we're talking to people in telecoms, we're known as CC Group, right?
Yeah.
So I tend to still say that, but then when you're speaking to anyone else, Hoffman. So it sort of depends on the audience.
You'll always be CC Group to us. No offence, Hoffman. And by the way, Hoffman, we're still waiting for that introductory piss-up that I think was threatened when the thing happened, but it's got a bit quiet. So
okay, I can have a word about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Good time of year for it.
Just explain that we're not very complicated people. We just need to be bought beers every now and then.
Yeah, preferably strong beer.
Oh yeah, so that's a good point. Zoe's she brought in some beers. There's a bit of a story, but we'll deal with this first. You brought in this thing called Rosa Blanca, which is from Mallorca, which is not nice and exotic.
Yeah.
It tastes very nice, but I note it's only 3.4%, which is like about half of what we end up drinking half the time. But it's pretty tasty, and it's probably not a bad idea to get started on.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for that. And you were going to bring more, but what happened?
I got ID'd for the first time in, I think, 5 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, and I didn't have my ID
so they
on
just
me.
went, no fucking beer?
No, she was going to, but she was clearly fearing for her job, so I thought I don't want to be that person that gets her fired by putting pressure on her. So
where was this? Which
to the Sainsbury's local, just down the road.
God. Okay.
So you must have mixed feelings about that. You wanted to bring a variety of beers, but you still look like you could be under 21.
Yeah.
So I'll let our audience who are watching on video form their own conclusions.
I'd rather look older and just not have to.
And not have to deal with bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, you go to all the trouble of getting a bit older, and then you still can't buy some beers.
Yeah.
And it's the worst of both worlds, isn't it? Did you
get asked for your ID, Scott?
Well, apart from that time in the States, that you just reminded me of, we went to a beer garden, a German beer garden was it like Greenwich Village, that sort of area?
Yeah, around about there.
Yeah, and they were really officious, and they went, you need ID. I think they're a bit like that in the States generally.
Yeah,
and I was like, come on, mate.
It's just a habit to ask.
I didn't fucking dye my hair grey.
Yeah, well, I think you said that, and then he let you in.
Yeah, he was going to tase me, but then he just let me in. So that was funny, because I get ID'd even less often than you, Zoe. And yeah, it just seemed officious. It wasn't a compliment. It wasn't like, God, you look so young. Anyway, so yeah, you are on, apart from for the pleasure of your company, you do have some stuff to talk about. So we'll get into that in a bit. And we've had contemporaries of yours on in the past. We've had we've had Paul and Rich, who are the two founders of CC Group, on plenty of times in the past. And I don't know which year it was, but one year we had Anais and Chloe on to talk about this equivalent report.
Yes,
I think.
yeah, a couple of years ago.
That was shot. That was 2
That
years
was at
ago.
an event, wasn't it?
That was at Network X, I think. Yeah.
So maybe 2 years ago then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So
3 years ago.
Okay.
No,
whatever.
2.
How long are you going to keep doing this?
No.
What else? So opening bollocks. I mean, we haven't been up to that much. We went and hung out with my bro last Friday. So that was good fun.
Saw a burning car.
Yeah, there was a car just spontaneously combusted outside the Rose and Crown.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of excitement.
Oh, was it?
Was it an electric car or?
Well,
the
that
whole
was the assumption.
windscreen.
What did you do?
Yeah, but it was coming out of the bonnet.
It was coming out the bonnet, but I wondered if someone had kind of gone past and like thrown
Just
something
casually
at
chucked
it.
a Molotov on
Well,
it.
that's what happens these days, isn't it, in London?
These days.
You know, it's all going to hell, knife crime.
I think, I don't know, actually, I don't know the data on it, but I think those batteries do have some minor risk of spontaneously combusting, don't they?
Yeah.
Supposedly, they are less likely to combust, but when they do, they are obviously far
They
more
don't fuck
dangerous
around.
because batteries burn.
Less
for
likely to
much
combust,
longer.
but the ironically named internal combustion engine
Yeah.
never actually combusts, does
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
in an
there's a
uncontrolled
gas
way.
tank.
Is it in an internal way? So-
Yeah,
With
exactly.
The gas tank leaks and there's a flame. It does.
Well, yeah. But I was never aware of cars spontaneously combusting until everyone started having electric cars. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I liked the way everybody was just sort of standing around taking photos.
Taking
of it.
photos, yeah.
And eventually someone like phoned 999.
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
By which stage it was a full
Yeah,
conflagration.
and the buildings above were on fire and everything, and there were children running out the door. No, there weren't. But it could have been gone if someone hadn't actually phoned.
So what
Yeah.
did you guys do?
You're
I started
starting.
taking photos, but I did say to the guy next to me, "Has anyone phoned yet?" And he went, "No, I'll do it now." So
Ian, inspired by the BBC, is now just making shit up.
no, I'm not. That is true.
Too soon.
See, to be fair, the BBC didn't make shit up. They deceptively
They did some
edited.
splicing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just did it to the wrong geezer. But there we are. What else? Oh yeah. So we had a laugh. We did touch on our experiences in Dublin, and I thought I was quite discreet. I didn't talk about hangry, Zoe.
But you're
which I'll
going
now
to
do.
now.
That,
Yeah, sure.
Well, no, I mean I've got a lot of experience in this because both my wife and my daughter have their moments.
Yeah.
So as we said in the last pod, we had a wild goose chase trying to find somewhere to eat on Dublin on a Monday, which turns out to be impossible. And then when we finally got back to our hotel, Zoe had the bright idea of just calling a takeaway. And then, as we described, we had this thing called a spice bag.
Yeah.
But the thing that made me laugh was Zoe just staring at her phone, just willing the fucking thing to turn up. And every now and then I'd sort of try and engage her in some light banter, and you just weren't having it, were you?
No, you tried to get me a drink, and I said I
Yeah.
need food.
Yeah.
It was like 11:30 at this point, and we've been drinking since 5, I think. So.
And the food, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to comment, as you were one of the main reason you were there was PRing the event. But the food, well, as I characterised
best
it in
meal
last
ever.
week's pod, was a bit school dinners. So expecting that to last you the whole rest of the day.
It was nice, but you mean at the actual event?
Yeah.
About?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lunch.
You
It
actually
was fine.
rescued quite a lot of people with that spice bag because
Yeah, you rescued.
there were
Paul,
some other
but-
forlorn
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean,
looking
and-
Well,
journalists
there was a
sitting
few
there.
others that were
Yeah.
on our mission, and they gave up on me, didn't they?
Yeah, they did it,
Some of them-
and then sent us photos of their hotel pizza.
Some of them were kind of just hangers on, weren't they? Really, they weren't. They weren't sort of.
They weren't part of the poor posse.
group,
Poor
were
posse.
they, really? Yeah. They can sort themselves out.
So before we move on from that, have you got any other recollections from that event? Was it good fun for you? You obviously
Yeah.
had to stay for the duration.
Yes, yeah. it
Was there
good
any
fun.
afters on Tuesday?
No afters on Tuesday. I was out with for dinner with my client Samsung. We went to a Celtic night show,
Oh,
so that was interesting.
What's a Celtic night show?
They do the
the sort of
what's it?
Irish
The
style
yeah, well,
dancing.
I don't know what it's called.
I think it's just Irish dancing.
Oh, well, yeah. Fuck,
Where you
I've
move your
forgotten
knees
as well.
around a lot and
Yeah,
sort of river
and
dance type
stamp a
stuff.
bit,
And
yeah.
And you
Michael
don't
Flatley
use your arms
Yeah.
at
Like
all.
Kate Winslet on Titanic. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's night without a K. I was
Yeah.
picturing some jousting or something.
No.
Okay, cool. Was that
Music night.
fun then?
Yeah, it was
That
good
sounds
fun.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
It's I hadn't been to Dublin for a while, and I've forgotten how much I just dig the whole Irish vibe.
Yeah,
it's just
nice.
it's just cool. The pubs are cool. I got to admit, I got to a stage on that Monday night where I'd had enough Guinness, though. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to switch to like a pale ale or something now.
Yeah, you've been drinking a lot of Guinness the previous night though as well, don't you?
Yeah, I was just fucking done with it, mate.
I'm a bit nervous because I have only ever drank Guinness in Dublin.
Right.
Never had it in London.
So
Obviously, they say it's not
you'll
as
be
good.
disappointed
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I think it is not as good. It's hard to tell why. It feels a bit smoother.
It's
in
smoother.
Ireland.
It's just got a slight sort of, when beer starts to go like real ales, it gets a bit of a tang to it. Like a bit of a sour taste.
when it's in the
got a bit
UK.
more of that in the UK, I think.
Whereas
I don't see any difference.
Yeah,
but-
it's just sort of, yeah, I agree. So, but I'm not a Guinness connoisseur. Before we get into it, Ian, you said you had a chat with someone, a normie,
Yeah,
about
I
telecoms.
was at an event which was hanging out with a mate for the weekend.
Okay.
And we
Your
were in a
event.
pub by a canal, sort of having a chat, and he was moaning about because O2 they're putting their prices up. I don't know if you're an O2 customer, but they've kind of announced
Yeah, I
this
think I
week
saw
that
some.
they're putting their price up quite like by enough to sort of piss people off. I don't quite get the, if I was someone who covered consumer telecom and stuff, I'd probably be going into it more, but I don't quite know what's prompted it, and I guess the other networks will probably end up responding. So, but he was on about moving and looking at options, and he was asking me what I thought of the other. So people are really oblivious, I think, to various things to do with telecom.
Oh,
probably in the
absolutely.
same way that we are. Like if we got into talking about gas to someone, so he didn't really know that there's only 3 networks. Like it's just like Vodafone 3, EE, and an O2, and that every other kind of brand that you might go through is just basically relying on that infrastructure.
Yes, so,
He didn't
so people
know
don't
that.
necessarily understand what an MVNO is.
So they didn't know what an MVNO is. And then it was this sort of, I asked him what he's paying, and he might be mentioned, by the way, is Mark. You've met him in the pub. It's
Okay.
like someone I've known since I was about 10. But he was only paying like, I think 15 a month or something for a fairly
little.
generous sort of dollop of
And he was
gigabytes.
bitching about that, and you were going,
Yeah, well, he was not
Stop
happy because he
fucking
was
moaning.
going to go up by
Yeah.
a few pounds, and then he was like, look, he was saying, well, so here's one of his points. He was looking at how many gigabytes he actually uses, and he went, look, and I could see his monthly usage was like literally like 2 gigabytes, which is low even by average standards. And I think the reason is he does a job where he's not allowed to have his phone even in the workplace with him, so he
Oh, right.
leaves it in his car. And then when he gets home, he checks his
Some
emails,
Wi-Fi.
but it's obviously gone straight back onto Wi-Fi. So he viewed it as, well, I'm being given 20 gigabytes a month. I'm using 2. That sounds like I'm getting a bad deal by paying this.
yeah, because
He
you
was
get
very-
people like USwitch come out with that propaganda going, you're getting ripped off, you're
And I thought-
paying for too
and
much.
apparently he's been listening to these money experts, like there's one of them who dispenses all sorts of advice, who comes out with this line that you might not need all the gigabytes you're getting, which I think is quite an odd way of looking at it. This sort of like you pay for the value of the gigabyte rather than having this sense that you're actually paying for a network to be there and provide you with the service as and when you need it. And I sort of said to him, I did my bit for sort of telecom PR basically in our industry, which I probably wouldn't do in my job. I just said, do you know how much it costs to build these networks and how much innovation is?
Did you
'Cause
grab him by the lapel?
well, I was sort of saying to him and explaining it as much as I know it, that it's kind of firing gigabytes over the air with these technologies that that based on complex algorithms to do with things like OFDM that only a few people on the planet understand. It's really kind of at the cutting edge of science in a way that your water pipes or your electricity isn't. And it's only been around for 20 years. People started to get mobile phones in the late 90s. But
Mobile
in terms
data,
in terms of data, like 3G, not really. It's only really been around since that's 2010. It's 15 years. If you went back to the mid-90s when we were at university and said, you'll be able to do this in the future, you'd have gone, get out of here. That's just ridiculously futuristic. You're being silly. It'd be like a Back to the Future type sort of thing.
Or if you just gone, or if you'd gone back then and gone, it's really annoying. I only get to stream 10 movies a day.
Exactly.
Onto my phone.
And I sort of said all this to him, and I was like, it's. And by the way, the networks are kind of you're paying a lot less than you would if you were in America, where they're paying, I said, like $80. It was like $80, and I was like, and I said, you're also complaining about 5G coverage, and yet the people are spending sort of £6, £7 a month. They're not going to be able to invest in networks. So
Was he actually complaining about 5G coverage? Would he?
We did complain about 5G.
Would he care about 5G?
So
he pays attention.
I don't know if it was
whether
this
he's on 4 or
conversation, but
5.
I think in the past he said it's 5G, the signal shows on the phone, but it's still pretty bad. And I've been around where he is, and there's a point like Woburn and Leighton Buzzard, that sort of area. There's quite a lot of gaps there, like black spots, which is fair enough. But I sort of said to him, if you want that to improve, then people sort of need to spend more on their service. And he sort of went, yeah. And then he kind of finished with him going, but obviously I still want to pay less. And so I'm going to still shop around, which is just a normal consumer thing to do. But I just thought it was quite an interesting chat with like an average man on the street perspective. You know?
I had a similar conversation with my mates. They shared a story and sort of shared it at me. There was something the BBC had covered where one of these money saving expert types had gone, most of the time, even when your phone says 5G, you're not getting 5G or something like that. It was a thing that was trending a few weeks ago.
Yeah, sorry.
And you saw that. And I just went, but you're not paying any extra for 5G, so stop fucking moaning. That was
that's a good point as well, because I think people haven't realised that if you had a 2G phone in the late 90s, like ARPU was really high. They were like expensive. People used to take them out and put them on the table in the pub just as a sort of like your Mercedes car keys or something.
Like you were being Michael Douglas.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like it was hard to afford it. It was quite an expensive item to have, like a luxury item, and then it's become a mass market thing. And you look at what people, even like you go 10 years ago, I looked at Vodafone's ARPU figures recently for some reason, and 10 years ago they were like a lot higher than they are now.
Yeah, it's been a race
before the 5G era, so you're spending less than ever.
So basically, normies, you're getting a great deal.
Pay more.
But then on the flip side, it almost doesn't matter, because any increase in cost you're going to moan about, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a normal thing for people to do, but
and maybe there's a tricky one. Maybe this is more in your comms domain, Zoe. How the fuck do you educate the market and explain these things to them? Because you're raising the price, but you're not giving them more for it, and that's a really difficult thing for consumers to stomach, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and you're trying to push the development you're making in the network, but the consumer doesn't care. They don't have the knowledge. They don't know what 5G standalone is versus normal 5G.
Yeah.
And I guess, they saw huge improvements in what they could do on their phones from 3G to 4G. And you didn't necessarily see that in the jump to 5G non-standalone. And so it just feels like these incremental increases that we as comms professionals working for those clients have to try and push and get people to care about, but it's very hard to do so.
It is.
Yeah.
So, but one of the ways in which you help yourself, it's a clever segue here, one of the ways in which you help yourself do that is to find out what the fuck's going on in the market.
Yes. Yeah, it's our job.
Which is something the CC/Hoffman has been doing for quite a while.
So seamless.
You what?
So seamless.
Yeah, I know. I'm the king of the segue.
Professional.
So why don't I pass the ball to you, Zoe? Tell us what about your latest study.
Yeah, sure. So every couple of years, we at CC Group commission a what we call our catalyst, which is research into telco buyers, so operators. And this is the first year now that we've been acquired by Hoffman in March, so earlier this year, that we've made it a global study. So we now have surveyed.
Was it always just Europe or something?
Just UK.
Just UK, was it? Oh, shit. Shows how much attention I was paying. So anyway, carry on. Sorry, I interrupted.
So we now have surveyed fixed, mobile and converged network operators across the globe, but mainly really where Hoffman has a presence, which is APAC, the US and Europe.
So this is quite a good pitch for the benefits of being part of this larger setup, isn't it?
Yes.
It's going, when we were just parochial old CC, we could just do the UK, but now we're part. I mean, I have no idea what the size of Hoffman is or headcount or something, but it's got global presence, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's about 350 of us globally,
right.
And that is full-time employees. That's not consultants. We do have partners that cover some areas where we're not present, like LATAM, for example, and Canada, I believe. But we are founded in the States by a guy called Lou Hoffman, who still runs it. Still an independent agency.
Looking forward to meeting you, Lou.
And he's over in a couple of weeks, actually.
Oh, well.
Are they East Coast based, Hoffman, or
around actually? Yeah. So got a place in San Jose, also in Portland.
Okay.
And are they? I mean, I know CC doesn't just do telecoms, does things like fintech and
absolutely. So telecoms is our heritage.
Yeah.
Sort of where Paul and Rich's experience came from.
Roots.
Yes, but we also have specialisms in fintech, cybersec, and then just sort of more broadly enterprise tech as well.
And is that how does that overlap with Hoffman's area of sort of industry interest?
They are more broader, sort of just B2B tech, right? So they have some telco clients. They're quite strong in the semiconductor space, actually. So got client. I think they do a small bit of work with NVIDIA, with TSMC.
Presumably they'd like to do more work with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Give us some of that wedge,
Wouldn't
Jensen.
we all? Yeah.
Lou says on the phone to him. Okay, cool.
Isn't everyone there a millionaire now or something? Even the kind of PAs
bloke who does the
guy
bogs.
makes the tea.
Yeah. Well, if you had any NVIDIA stock from like 5 years ago, you're fucking laughing now.
Yeah.
Although, what's his name? The guy who runs SoftBank.
He's Masayoshi Son.
There we are.
Wow.
He just flogged all his NVIDIA.
Yes, but he does the opposite of what you should actually do usually.
Yeah. There was a sorry, Zoe. I'm sure you know that we do tangents.
Yep.
But there was quite a big fuss about it because he flogged it all, and then the superficial reading of it all was that this sort of visionary Warren Buffett type, supposedly,
which he isn't.
Which I know you have reservations about that label. In fact, I think I hope you don't mind me saying, but on a chat group we had, you said do the opposite of whatever he's doing as investment advice. But he has made some money on NVIDIA, so fair play to him. But anyway, so that the markets were like, oh my God, is this the puncturing of the AI bubble? But then all that money, he realised he just chucked it at OpenAI. Right. So far from a puncturing of the AI bubble, it is a...
Well, that's right, because OpenAI is basically an offshoot of NVIDIA, so...
It is, pretty much these days. Anyway, we digress. So, So, yes, this report, which is now global for the first time.
Yeah, global for the first time. And it's really about understanding where operators are investing over the next couple of years, their view on AI, the returns they're seeing from AI. And then we particularly drill into the how they find new vendors, right? What channels, what content formats are they looking for to try and identify new vendors.
What we bang on about a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead. So it's been done. It's out.
Yes.
The results are out.
It's launching in 2 weeks, so you guys actually have the exclusive.
Got the exclusive
this episode.
Okay,
yeah.
so we're getting the preview.
Yeah, and it's funny really. The main finding is I find quite amusing because I think it's a common theme of your discussion on this pod is that telcos are ambitious, right? That's what the research is showing, that they have big ambitions around new service development, what they want to do with AI, the confidence in AI, but actual investment shows a very different picture. And they're moaning about constraints, regulatory constraints, finance, legacy systems. So it feels like, very reminiscent of both of your coverage, really, in terms of
I didn't think you did a study at all. I think you just condensed stuff you've heard on the pod.
I've just got AI to just condense your coverage. But yeah, that was one of the key findings, really, that telcos have big ambitions, are talking up the potential of AI, and they are investing and they are seeing ROI, but they're still sort of constrained by legacy systems and regulation and things.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a fucking familiar story, isn't it?
I think that's the kind of story of the sector, isn't it? For years with various techs, but
in terms of like. So this is done as like a questionnaire, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Or survey
it's
or whatever.
quantitative, yeah.
And then you survey industry people, and then you collate it all.
Yes.
So are there any like particular questions? I mean, the AI one intrigues me. Are there any particular AI sort of attitude questions that you've got before you on your ThinkPad?
Well, I thought we could play. That beautiful machine.
Oh, you got a quiz?
High performing machine. Yeah, I thought we could do a quiz actually.
An early quiz.
Oh, you're trying to
like
steal Elena's thunder.
No.
Sorry, Elena, this wasn't our idea.
Promise I'm not stepping on any toes. One question. So who out of Europe, APAC and the US, who do we think is investing the most in AI?
In the telco sector?
Yeah, operators.
Right. Is it hit you? We haven't got a buzzer this time.
I'd probably go APAC myself.
Yeah, I'd say APAC.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
There actually, there was a thing, a very self-serving quote from Jensen Huang from NVIDIA saying how China's going to win the AI race. And I think, the most obviously self-serving thing of it is brackets, unless you chuck more money at NVIDIA. But the more indirect stuff is he was talking about regulation and power and that sort of thing. There was I think an FT that opinion piece earlier on this week that said, what if AI isn't about chips at all? And what they're basically doing is talking about the power. And obviously we've been speaking about that for about a year, since we had people like Exa on and we met Nscale and we learnt about how increasingly AI data centers are not positioning themselves near population centers but near power sources. And then you've got people like Microsoft going, fuck it, let's just fire up, what's it called, 5 Mile Island, 3 Mile Island, and just fire up nuclear power stations just for our data centers and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the point of Jensen's point was that we're kind of getting in our own way in the West. He's presumably primarily referring to the US.
Yeah.
Whereas in China, and they've got this much more top-down coordinated system of government anyway, they're just letting them run rampant and they've got all the power they need.
Yeah, I mean...
Does that count power then as well? Electricity?
No, just AI technology-based investment.
But his comments aren't specifically about telco there.
No, that was just a tangent. But it's just
no,
me
I know,
thinking
but it's an interesting tangent. But you can hardly. I mean, the amount that's going into his chips that's being spent by Google, Microsoft, and Amazon is outrageous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an investment boom that, the like of which you rarely see, and that's what's propelled his company's share price to 5. It's not 5 trillion anymore, is it?
No, it's 4 point something.
There's been a bit of a
or
sell-off in the last few weeks. Oracle's shares apparently down about 30% in the last few weeks.
Well, I mean, it probably do this for a bit because I think people are starting to talk about an AI bubble.
Well, they're waiting for the earnings on Wednesday.
I mean, their earnings are not going to show anything different, I don't think, to be honest. I mean, are they going to show a slight slowdown in the rate of growth? Maybe, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be something. I don't know, man. I guess the spreadsheet guys who plug the numbers in and go, "Oh, it's not 20% growth; it's 18, and therefore there's a big sell-off because it doesn't track to where it's supposed to go."
Yeah.
You had that interesting story you circulated about
Michael Burry.
Yeah, the returns that people would have to be seeing from AI to justify what's going into it, which equates to something like several $100s from every iPhone customer, but within the next few years.
Yeah, so there's lots of people. Lots of people have been doing lots of maths. There's Richard Windsor from Radio Free Mobile, who we quite often give free publicity on this, and he's never rewarded us by coming on the pod.
Well, he nearly did once, and then he changed his mind.
He probably doesn't even listen, but come on the pod, Richard, for fuck's sake. And he talks about the return. I mean, I think he was the first person I read where he was talking about how much, in order to justify the investment and the debt and the projections and all that sort of thing, they have to be getting a set amount of revenue by, let's say, 2030 or whatever. And he said that would basically have to equate to this amount of revenue from each user, because the vast majority of especially ChatGPT users are free. Things like Anthropic, they've got a more B2B route to market and they monetize a bit more. Yeah. Whereas ChatGPT is all the classic internet. Just get as many people using it and worry about monetizing the fuckers down the line.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he was talking about how implausible that is. And then there was a guy, I'll see if I can find the tweet. There's a guy called Michael Burry who are you familiar with The Big Short, Zoe?
Yes, yeah.
So he was basically, have you seen the movie?
No, I haven't. It's
okay.
3 hours long or something, isn't it?
Yeah, you definitely got to be very interested in that subject matter.
Okay.
But anyway, he's played by
as good as the
Christian
book.
Bale in the movie. No, the book's brilliant. But the movie's not a bad effort on covering incredibly arcane.
Yeah, I mean
subject
they've had to sort of not fictionalize it, but make it into a drama. Whereas the book was just a good.
Book was just a factual.
but very readable. Michael Lewis.
Yeah, it's like a journalistic account, more or less. Anyway, he's just come out and he's talking about depreciation. And saying how there's basically some accounting fuckery going on.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm not as convinced by that as the other guy's analysis.
Okay, what was the other one?
No, the stuff you've just been talking about with the iPhone returns, because he's basically accusing them of accounting irregularities,
fraud, pretty much,
and things like Sarbanes-Oxley and all the stuff that came in after the Enron thing and everything is made like accounting irregularities used to be what you did. Yeah, that was like. Well, everybody does that, and then you eventually get caught, and you end up being like Bernie Ebbers and going to jail.
And then you've got these absurd things like standard and non-standard and that sort of thing. I forget what the actual.
But it's very hard to get away with that sort of thing nowadays. So if they're not marking down things on the balance sheet as they should be doing, and they're going to get tripped up for it in the future, then these guys are going to go to jail.
Maybe. But then accounting's a bit woolly because they can say we did account for it. We just decided to depreciate it
it's not that
more
woolly,
slowly.
It's not as woolly as it used to be. It's been tightened up a lot, what you're allowed to do and what you aren't allowed to do, even on things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't read his stuff.
Okay, well, so very quickly, I'll read the tweet that was November the 10th, so earlier on this week, or in last week by the time this gets published. He goes, understating depreciation by extending useful life of assets artificially boosts earnings, one of the more common frauds of the modern era. Yeah, massively ramping capex through purchase of NVIDIA chips/servers on a 2 to 3 year product cycle should not result in the extension of the useful lives of computer equipment. Yet this is exactly what all the hyperscalers have done. By my estimates, they will understate depreciation by 176 billion in the 26 to 28 timeframe.
I mean, that's pretty big, yeah.
It's pretty big, and it's not like this guy. He's not just some rando.
Okay,
he's the one who called The Big Short. For fuck's sake.
Oh, is he? Okay,
yeah, it's from Michael
right.
Burry.
Yeah,
That's what you mentioned.
He also like closed his firm, and then he's moving into like a basically off the book stuff, so he doesn't have to disclose his stuff. And people are like, oh yeah, maybe he's
well, he could be a poacher turned gamekeeper, or the other way around.
Because he was right about the subprimes, but that's kind of like the only thing so far, really.
That's true. We haven't heard from him for a while. Anyway, so I'm not saying take it literally just because he got that one right, but this is all just food for thought on how this could be a bubble, and some of it could be inflated by some creative accounting, let's say.
Right. Well,
so
I mean it's fairly shocking if they're doing that, but
I don't know if it's shocking. I mean, that's what accountants do. That's why you buy an accountant, is to cook the books, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you don't buy an accountant to cook the books.
You buy an accountant to have your books in order.
To find legal and non-fraudulent ways of doing things.
Legal, illegal, blah, 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 tomato. Anyway, but joking aside, if you can, depreciation is probably quite a subjective thing. Okay, like I've had my PC at home that's got an NVIDIA graphics card in it for ages, and I'm still sweating that asset.
Yeah.
Because I want to leave it as long as possible before shelling out £1,000 on a new computer.
I don't think it's that subjective. Like when Ericsson wrote down the value of Vonage by massive amounts, and it's really hammered their share price to do that, and just led to a lot of grumbling about you overpaid for this asset and pressure on the CEO and concerns about their future strategy and all this sort of stuff. They did that because they probably knew that they had to kind of do it at some point. So
it's not your boiler, is it?
Well, it might be, but I can't do it now, can I? I can't answer a boiler call in the...
Ian's boiler keeps busting, and he was moaning before we started recording that his landlord/management agent or whatever won't fix it.
That'll be someone at the door trying to
now.
fix it, and now I'm in a podcast.
Take it. I mean, if it's the difference between you having a proper shower or not.
Given up
a
now,
podcast.
so.
Okay. All right, well, remember, ring them up after.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, so, but I take your point about write-downs like Ericsson and Vonage, but depreciation is a different thing. Depreciation is how you account for assets that depreciate, that have a natural life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a degree of subjectivity as to how long that natural life is. Maybe there shouldn't be. Anyway, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too long, not least because we've completely diverted from what Zoe's talking about.
I expected that.
But yes, it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the service. So.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back to your thing. I've even forgotten what I asked you and what you answered. But what
we were talking
about
about
the investments,
telcos AI
APAC
investments.
and all that.
Yeah,
there we go.
But the broad theme of the research was really trying to understand where operators are focusing their efforts. Right? Are they still focused on efficiency or innovation? So trying to reduce cost in order to improve profit margins, or trying to develop new services. And the biggest theme, unsurprisingly, still remains efficiency. I thought there'd be a bit more of a regional split there. I was expecting, say, Europe in particular to be, sort of almost solely focused on efficiency. But actually across the board, I think it's 95% of telcos are prioritising efficiency. And many of them are actually trying to do both at the same time.
Right.
And so one of the key findings of the research is what we've called this intention investment gap. So we surveyed those that participated and said, what role do you think telcos should play in new service development? Should you be a leading player, or should you just be focusing on the connectivity, the pipes behind it, and let the enterprises build on top? And 97% agreed they want to play a leading role. But actually, in terms of those investing in developing new services, it was only about 60% of them. So you've got this massive gap between what telcos want to do.
Activity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're all talk.
Yeah.
They're all fucking talk. They're all giving it all out, Ian.
Yeah.
Giving it large.
For some reason, I got this one little sort of Cockney geezery joke that always makes Ian laugh, where it goes, a lobster goes into a bar.
Yeah.
Starts chatting to another guy in the bar and sees they're getting on well. They buy each other drinks, and then suddenly it kicks off and they have a fight, and the guy just hits the lobster. And the barman goes to the guy, "Why'd you do all that?" And he went, "He was giving it all that." And I'm doing with my hands. I sort
Scott's
of
pretending to be a lobster.
and the reason it's a Cockney joke is because when people are being really gobby, they go, "He's giving it all that," and you normally do this sort of gobby motion with your hands. I can see the joke's finally worn thin with you because you don't laugh anymore.
No, so you haven't to explain it too much.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually,
It's a partly visual joke.
So
Doesn't
they're
work
all
in a podcast, Scott.
No, that's true. That was bad judgment on my part. So they're all talk.
All talk, yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But when we look at return on investment, right, we ask them about what returns are you seeing from AI investments that you've made specifically related to new service development versus AI investments you've made around efficiency and consolidation. And actually, returns are higher for those investing in new service development. So there's the intention there. There's better returns, but still not quite happening.
It feels like risk aversion to me.
Yeah, which is a common theme, right? Particularly with European telcos.
Yeah.
And that was
It's interesting that you make that distinction because, I mean, we all generalise that Americans certainly are more comfortable with risk and more happy with rolling the dice.
Well, I think, I mean, the APAC companies as well, aren't they? You get the soft banks is a good example of one. You know, if you get to talking about things like AI RAN, which has been a big topic in the last few weeks since the whole Nokia Nvidia deal, the two telcos that get associated with that most are SoftBank and T-Mobile US. But then if you broaden it to just AI generally, you've got players like SKT and I guess the Japanese, the other Japanese telcos to some extent. But the big Chinese, I mean, China's also
Rackets is pretty innovative.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. But the big Chinese companies where we don't have as much sort of insight into what's going on because it's kind of a bit closed off, obviously.
China.
Yeah. If you hear people talk about it who've gone there and who look into that market and you see what they're doing, they really sort of, I mean, even the comparisons that the vendors make in Europe with what you're able to do in China in terms of 5G advanced now.
Their 5G rollout was bigger and quicker.
It was all standalone from the beginning. It's like an incredibly densified network. It's like, this has been a really big topic this week, actually. The newsy thing's almost been the spectrum side of things because Europe's it's made a decision on that upper 6 gigahertz band.
Oh yeah, Michelle wrote that up for you, didn't she? Yeah.
It's like they've basically given nearly all of it to mobile and is a little bit held back for Wi-Fi, but it looks like that might eventually
quite often
go.
the way. I think that happened a couple of years ago when they had one of those get-togethers.
Yeah.
And they tended to favour mobile over Wi-Fi, didn't they?
Yeah, well, it's completely different in every region of the world, though.
In fact, we had someone on the pod talking about that. I've forgotten who it was, sorry. If you're listening, I apologise. But his whole area of interest was this.
Yeah.
But he was lobbying more from the Wi-Fi perspective.
Yes, yeah.
Was it Yussi?
No.
No. All right,
No, Yussi does Wi-Fi sort of improvement.
Oh, okay, at least I was in
buildings.
roughly the right area. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Well, it's different in every area of the world now.
Really?
So,
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's different in every area of the world. Oh, you were not saying really to that, sorry. But so the US is like the whole of the 6 gigahertz band is for Wi-Fi, and Europe's kind of like split some, and then in China it's all for 5G and 6G, and that gives them the freedom to do quite a lot more with spectrum. So Yega Tenorio at Verizon was moaning about this, like that we don't have a leading spectrum position and it's going to hold us back in 6G because you need those fatter channels. And it kind of...
What do you mean by a leading spectrum position?
Because they don't have any like spectrum in the 6 gigahertz band that's been allocated for 6G.
Was that a big
It's
debate
all-
recently, the CBRS one that AT&T and Verizon were involved in?
That's
Yeah.
well, that's like more sort of 3.5, isn't it? And I
Okay,
guess
fine.
that you could there's options there as well. But if they don't have that 6 gigahertz band, and that becomes one of the kind of global bands for 6G, then they'll have to find sort of adjacent spectrum somewhere. But already it's like, where does this come from? Because you need these kind of 400 gigahertz, not 400 gigahertz, 400 megahertz channels to do. So they're saying, I don't know how accurate this is, but this is the message from people like Verizon, CTO, and Nokia. When we were in Finland, they were talking about this a bit, that you need these big kind of channels to do sensing with a lot of accuracy, and various other services that you might have. Whereas it's been like 100 megahertz channels in 5G, but if you're going to make improvements and open it up to more advanced services, it needs to be these four. And that's a lot of spectrum. So if you start cutting it up and saying this is for Wi-Fi, this is for 6G, then you're kind of constraining what the industry can do. So I think some of it this is a massive tangent, but I think some of it's probably this sense that in these big Asian markets, they've been a bit more kind of pro-cellular, and it's the government just decides what it's going to do. It's like there's no auction. It's like you push this spectrum to the telcos, and they don't really care about. They want to have like 5G and 6G as a kind of pervasive thing that's in factories and that does drones, but they've done it really well. I mean, I don't know what the ROI is like on all of this, but it sounds like they've just done it very well. If you're really into that kind of thing, having this kind of blanket
it's so hard
advanced 5G coverage.
It's so hard to work out the economics of how they do things in China. So politically, obviously, you've got the advantage of having this slightly more command economy, or at least the CCP ultimately being able to call the shots, and that's and we'll get onto this maybe when we cover other news, and that's one of the sticks that's used to beat companies like Huawei, is like ultimately they're beholden to the political rulers. We still don't know how accurate that is, but we do know that in not just China but in the US and in Europe, there's plenty of opportunities for political power to lean on private enterprise and get it to come to heel. So that wouldn't be unique to China, even if it was true, and I'm sure it is to some extent. But so they have these advantages where they can just go, there's only 3 mega operators in China covering these billion people and all these consumers, and they can presumably coordinate them, and they can also sort of allocate spectrum and all that sort of thing. Flip side of having all that, and so it's not surprising that they're ahead. Flip side of that is that you've got to live in that political environment, which I'd prefer not to myself.
Yeah.
But it's the point I'm making is it's so hard to tell to what extent China's ahead, because there'll be a degree of propaganda in the external messaging as well. To what degree they're ahead, to what degree that's attributable to the political climate, as opposed to just the entrepreneurial spirit of the companies involved and all that sort of thing. But it does seem that they are ahead.
I've got a breaking news update.
Oh, right. Is that where you were just fucking around?
There's a boiler repairman at my flat at the moment.
Oh, so that phone call was from the boiler, and he's in there. Someone let him in.
Well, I told the landlord to make sure that he had a key to get in. It looks like that's actually happened.
Cool.
Oh, good.
Okay, well, fingers crossed, mate.
You had no heating or hot water?
You had to have a cold shower.
Are you going to have a hot bath with candles tonight?
I don't really do baths.
No, I know. I know you respond seriously.
Yeah,
Try it.
I think it's a bit weird that image came so quickly into your head, Ian.
It's like I could see like Ian with a good book, like the foam, the candles.
I can see myself doing that in a hotel.
Maybe Sade as music is back then. Yeah.
Do you like a bit of pampering, Ian?
Not really. I just like a whiskey every now and again.
Yeah, that's your idea
That's my
of being
pampering.
spoiled.
Yeah.
Okay, so bring it back. So
Back to AI.
where were we? Oh yeah,
Tell me
AI.
about-
Favourite topic?
So I tell you, it's an interesting one. Actually, this is a way of steering the conversation back to you anyway, Zoe, is you've been CCFman for 2 years, and you've been covering telecoms that time. But telecoms in your previous lives wasn't necessarily a core area for you. So, you've got a really good perspective. I certainly don't mean that as something to berate you about. You've got a really good perspective. Here we are. We've been stuck in it. I've been stuck in it for nearly 12 years. He's been stuck in it forever.
Charming.
26.
He talks about doing like bids for 3G licenses. That's what
I was doing in 1999. Yeah, 2000.
That's pretty close to forever, isn't it? How were you then, Zoe, when he was doing that?
4.
4. And so, from your point of view, I'm interested. I mean, you can refer this to your findings or just anecdotally. You know, as an industry, is some of actually this is where we can join the two together. Is a lot of these findings, is it consistent with what you've anecdotally observed from your 2 years of being sort of immersed in the telecoms industry?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think it rings true also with a lot of the narrative that you guys are talking about as well on this podcast. And over the last 2 years, I've learned a lot from listening as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting industry to come into. I think on the PR side of things, you know, previously I worked in automotive, broadcast, but then more recently the open source side of things, cybersecurity. I think the telecoms crowd, the bunch of media and analysts, are the friendliest of all of those.
Well,
so
nice
that's a nice accolade.
Well,
It's not many of us.
Yeah,
Definitely
But,
must be nicer than car journalists. They're horrible.
Okay.
yeah.
4 miles is all right.
No, I meant, well, yeah.
You mean more like sort of Clarkson?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I do find them amusing, but
Yeah, no, we're all right.
Yeah. Well, I used to work for Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, so that's a very different.
So what kind of?
Blimey.
So you're PRing. So who? What kind of journalists are you interacting with for rollers?
My role at the time was more on the experiential lifestyle side of things. So if you think about the sort of average Rolls-Royce customer, right, that ultra high net worth individual, they're investing often in those kind of cars as an investment, and just like art and fashion. Yeah, some of them, because they do limited edition runs.
Yeah.
Right.
Like collector's
things.
cars.
So normally with cars, talking about depreciation, you expect it's a depreciation over 10 or 15 years and then it's dead.
But with sort of average Joe car, yeah, absolutely.
Like my shitty second-hand Ford Focus.
I was going to say your focus is not good enough.
Yeah, that's
not an
going
investment.
That's going to collect money, no.
So there's lots of different reasons for buying a roller other than just saying I got loads of money. It could be an investment.
Yeah, and it is a very comfy ride as well. Yeah. I think they call it the magic carpet ride.
Never been in a Rolls Royce.
No, I don't think I have.
It is genuinely lovely. I'm not about to go and spend my own money on one. Not that I have that, but
I mean, they're brilliant engines.
yeah.
Most aviation engines are Rolls Royce, aren't they?
yeah.
So
Although they are
make an
separate
engine.
companies.
Yeah, it's
now,
not really the
I
They're
same
think.
completely
Yeah.
separate, are they?
Yeah, so Rolls-Royce Motor
Same
Cars
name,
is
mate.
owned by BMW Group now.
Yeah.
Since
Right.
2001, I think.
Right. Oh, I've gone off them now.
Yeah.
It's like Hewlett Packard.
Didn't know they were German.
Packard Enterprise, Scott.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So
Bentley's also German, sadly.
Yeah,
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen Group, yeah.
wow.
So it
Yeah.
leaves like what? Aston Martin and JLR?
Yeah, JLR.
JLR. Oh, Jaguar Land Rover.
Although they're owned by Tata Group, aren't they?
Yes. Oh my God. You guys. A failed empire. Sorry.
So are there any wholly British-owned cars left?
Maybe Aston Martin is the last one. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Could
Yeah,
be.
Aston
We
Martin.
could ask ChatGPT, I guess.
I'll go. Anyway,
Well, and there's a few startups now like Ineos, Grenadier, and things. I know far more about this industry than I wish to, but my husband works in it, so I just have to
your husband
listen.
works in it. Oh,
Yes.
I was about to say you're
That's how we met.
revealing a whole different sort of geeky side to yourself there.
Yeah, it
And
pains
that's
me when
cheating
certain
if you're
cars
halves.
drive past and I notice they've got a different body kit on them or something. I won't necessarily know what it is, but I'll know it's different.
So when
I hate myself for it.
no, it's not at all.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to be as nerdy about telecom in 3 or 4 years?
So we were recently on a road trip. We're driving through France and into Spain, and mobile signal on the French motorways was incredible, and we were actually mast spotting. So
French have good infrastructure.
yeah,
Fair play to
amazing.
them.
So
That
I've sort
and
of got
cheese.
my husband into it, yeah, and wine.
No, they're good at lots of things.
Jeez.
I was just being facetious.
Apparently, we're not good at making stuff anymore, though.
Right.
Problem.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's a complaint of the West generally, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you were cruising down the auto route.
Yes, we were, and honestly, there was a mast sort of almost 2 sometimes in sight at all times. We had consistent 4G or 5G
Or if you've
coverage
started
on the
spotting
entire
masts,
journey.
then you're definitely part
I
of the
know.
industry. I do that to my family.
The French motorway is not free,
brightens
though.
up journeys.
No,
To
it's
give out
not.
that, like,
Yeah.
it's butter smooth, it's great, but then you have to pay.
I'd
Yeah.
almost rather pay though.
Oh, yeah, I'm
because
happy
you
to
get
pay.
much better services, quality of the road.
Have you actually been up to a mast and taken photos of the bottom of the mast with the server equipment.
And posted it on LinkedIn.
It's testing your geek credentials.
Oh no, she doesn't want to get COVID.
I've done that because there's a big one in Wandsworth near this.
and it's got Huawei
yellow
in it.
depot like storage facility. There's this enormous mast with all the kind of state of the art 5G stuff on it. And I thought, as we were kind of moving stuff in and out of this storage thing at the time, a few months ago, I thought, well, I'll go and have a look at the server equipment.
Any
at the
excuse to
bottom.
get out of
touch it.
doing the work.
Well, no, but it's like loads of Huawei like labels around. So
Did you unplug
took a
anything?
photo of it, stuck it in a story. I mean, obviously they're still allowed to have it at the moment,
proper shoe leather journalism.
but they won't be allowed to have it in.
Yeah. We'll get onto that in a bit. By the way, I just googled Aston Martin.
2 years.
Just Google Aston Martin. The little strap for their website is iconic luxury British sports cars. But then, and you go onto the news bits, FT, Aston Martin chair explored buyout of car maker with Saudi fund. Boo.
Yeah.
Well, are the majority shareholders though?
I don't know. I haven't even clicked through. But
Funding is one thing, but owning them is different. You know?
no, buyout.
Oh.
It's a fund, but it was going to buy it out. PIF for struggling luxury auto group. Why are they struggling? Why are people buying more? I love. If I had lots of money and I was going to buy a posh car, I think I'd buy an Aston Martin.
I think you're only allowed to talk
they're
about
cool.
cars if they've got connectivity inside them.
Well, and mainly because they have great connectivity.
Yes,
I've heard
yeah.
Aston Martins.
Yeah, they're leading in that space.
So how did we get onto that? Oh yeah, your sort of experience of the industry and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
So basically, it's an industry, and I don't know if there are any parallels with cars, because I certainly know that the margins with cars are fucking tiny, aren't they? But the telecoms industry it's a big industry in terms of the total size of it, and obviously it's quite prominent. Loads of ads you see all the time for operators and broadband and all that sort of thing. So it's economically very active, but it's just very, very low growth. And so it's hard for investors to get excited
But
about.
I imagine the car industry is, isn't it? Or,
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
I suppose if
I'll
you're going
defer to
into
Zoe on that.
fast developing markets where people are like the Chinese market where everybody wants to get a Beamer now. Then,
the Chinese automotive market is booming at the moment.
Yeah,
the amount
but there's
of new
not.
players.
But it feels like telecoms sort of gone through that phase already, and we've not found something for. And this maybe gets to some of the survey stuff that you found. Is this focus on, like I think you said, there's a big focus on efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which just seems like one of the themes of the industry.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
actually was a news story today that we kind of journalised with the Verizon 15,000
Yes, we journalised
job
that
cuts.
too. Yeah. Who was that? Was that
Michelle wrote it for.
Yeah, who did we journalise it from?
I don't know.
Wall Street Journal.
I don't do journalising, so I turned it over to somebody else.
Oh, la-di-da. He's too good for that.
But it was like if you look at the US telcos, they're always sort of cutting headcount and in massive numbers actually, like for the last 10 years.
So this was 15,000 Verizon. It was the story.
Yeah, 15,000. But I think like when those stories get written, a lot of people don't put it into context that they've actually cut. I think if you go back to 2012, which isn't all that long ago.
It's Wall Street Journal, by the way. Sorry, go on.
Wall Street Journal, okay. Yeah. If you go back to 2012, which isn't all that long ago, Verizon had over 180,000 people, and its workforce at the moment is 100,000. And they're going to get rid of another 15,000. I mean, they got rid of about 40,000 under Hans Vestberg, who took over, I think, in 2017. 40,000 jobs went under him. About 20,000 have gone in the last 2 or 3 years.
The US operators seem to be cutting headcount more so than, say, European, right? Why do you think that is?
I think, well, it's easy to do it there.
Yeah, of
I think
course.
Probably
the labour law.
Yeah, I think just get rid of you like that, don't they?
They just say, sling your rook.
And I think, I don't know, I mean, the Europeans have cut pretty aggressively as well. And if you look at what BT's doing at the moment, so again, it's quite newsy because I think BT had their earnings, didn't they, a few days ago? Did I mention?
We chatted about them last week, didn't we?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But they're
this happens when you get older, Zoe.
They're
Look forward to it.
really aggressive on cost cuts, like now. I mean, she's come into the business, 2 years ago almost now, I think, Alison Kirkby, and done this quite good job of lifting the share price. I think it's up 70% underneath her. And
I will confirm that.
And well, it might not be quite because it's gone up and down a little bit, I think, in the last few days since the earnings.
That's too late. You said it.
All right. You can see since she took over, I think, which is maybe April last year. I don't know. I might have got that wrong. But
yeah, April 24.
Yeah, since April 24, their share price has gone up pretty dramatically under her. but it's still not at the level it was obviously back when Gavin Patterson there in 2015. But I think she's...
Yeah, you're right. Sort of 10th of May 2024, it was trading at 105, now it's 176.
There you are.
And that's after it peaked over 220.
Yeah.
Earlier
Always get
on
my
this year.
data points right, you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. I never doubted you, mate. I just thought it was funny that you were suddenly trying to hedge your position. That's all.
Yeah, but I think she's done this. Philip Janssen left, I think, under a bit of a cloud because he was maybe a bit more of an abrasive character, and he rubbed a few people up the wrong way, and he said a few things that got sort of written about in the press that didn't do him any favours. And from what I've been told, you didn't see him in the office that much, and he wasn't much of a kind of people person. Whereas I think she's like almost the opposite on all those counts. Like she's very good with people. She's good on the investor calls even. She comes across as quite like a someone that you could sit down and have a chat with, a coffee with or something. And I've met her briefly. And
you must have met her at the MWC dinner, right?
But she's big. But I think that's
where we stayed for the duration, Zoe.
Yeah.
Got to give Zoe some props there.
Yes, of course.
What was that for my
it was me, Zoe, Katie from CC from
you guys were out till
Howard
later
Jones
than I was. Yeah.
Staying out till in the morning.
Yeah, so she was at that event, and it was nice that she came. And I suspect you wouldn't have seen Philip Janssen coming to something like that. So, but I think it's great to have her at a time when she's just as aggressive on cost cuts as he was, but he would have got, I think, this perception in the past that, it's all right for the CEOs, the fat cats, whilst they're cutting thousands and thousands of jobs, whereas no one really says that about her. But she's quite happy to sit on investor calls and talk very openly about AI and how many jobs they think they're going to be able to get rid of because of AI. And I think if you look at the projections, they're talking about going down to something like, at a minimum, the low end of the range is 75,000 people at BT by 2030. They had, this including contractors, they had 130,000, I think, when just before she came in. That's a massive amount of cuts. So the US guys have been doing it aggressively, but you're seeing it to some extent in Europe now as well. I think Deutsche Telekom's been quite heavy on cuts. Orange tends to, from what I understand, is they tend to wait for people to retire and then they just don't replace them. So the workforce just carries up. But obviously over a period of a few years, then your workforce is quite a bit smaller than it used to be.
It's just called voluntary redundancy, isn't it?
And you sort of think how much of that, the thing for me is always trying to understand how much of that's to do with, AI is quite new, the version that people are talking about at the moment. Generative AI is only 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah. I know, you wouldn't think it. Everyone's been so mental about it.
I don't think a lot of it's got to do with generative AI. I really don't. I think I don't even think a lot of it's got to do with like older AI. I think a lot of it's just like, I hate to say it, but those kind of middle management jobs, taking those out. And
I agree. I think a lot of big companies, not talking specifically now, but I just think they just grow and actually they don't necessarily need that larger workforce, and sometimes it becomes inhibitive. But the generative AI that we know today in our general back office operations, those sat behind a desk, it's maybe helping you, maybe speeding up things, but it hasn't actually changed the way anyone is working yet, that it means you actually can get rid of thousands of people.
Without giving away trade secrets, does it sometimes help you sort of get a head start on writing press releases?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not necessarily a press release, but if you've got a huge amount of technical information from a client and you just need to initially, get a view of it, absolutely. Yeah. Or if you want to do some quick research, I find the research less helpful, right? Because then you still need to go through and check all of the sources.
Exactly, you can't rely on it 100%.
But also for finessing it, or if you're, sometimes in PR you have difficult emails to send to clients to get things done, right? And that can be helpful in terms of
terms of like phraseology and
in terms of toning it down. My husband and I call it the shitogram. Sometimes
he'd never
you need
do
to
that.
send.
He delights in writing those kinds of emails.
I've had to do a lot with my daughter recently because the council won't pay for her education. Anyway,
but I mean from a work perspective as well. That's like one of your favourite things.
Well, it happens very rarely. It's just on a rare occasion someone sends me an RC email. I quite enjoy going, oh, we're doing that, are we?
See, I'll do that, but then I'll send another version. I'll get it out and just delete that.
Yeah.
No,
I've written so many emails I've not sent.
Yes. I mean, you've probably heard us on this pod. We've agonised a lot about how much to lean on it, and obviously, as professional writers, we're like, is it part of the ways, especially now, and it's not just AI, but there's just so much content out there. Part of the ways, one of the key ways in which we try and distinguish ourselves as writers, apart from knowing what we're talking about and doing proper journalism and talking to people and finding shit out, is through the style and tone and personality you put into your writing. And if you start leaning on AI a bit too much there,
I think there's been a bit of a kind of backlash against it recently, perhaps, that maybe linked to this talk of an AI bubble as well, like the limitations of generative AI. Because I think like a year and a half ago, maybe we'd have been having one of these podcasts and going, oh, we're all going to be out of jobs, aren't we? And it can write music like Tchaikovsky and all this stuff. And it turns out it actually can't do a lot of this stuff very well. It's got a lot of limitations. And I think, you know, like you were saying, people are looking for sort of authenticity in voices and you know, actually wanting to have people in the process. And I think there's a lot of concern, even if you're doing technical jobs, that people don't want to cede responsibility to
there's the accountability side of it,
kind of thing. So
as maybe you were inferring, Zoe, you know, you can't outsource writing an important email or a report or something entirely to it, because if there's a mistake in it, you can't go, oh, it's the AI's fault.
Yeah, still your name on it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, no one wants to give responsibility to it and take people out of the loop completely.
Well, that's the interesting transition now, right? When you talk about agentic AI, that, you know, the current Gen AI tools we have are just maybe helping us in the job that we're already doing.
Yeah.
And the intention with agentic AI is actually to take away the instruction and the task itself, and it just does it all for you without you program it once, and it continues doing that on a weekly basis. And
then what do? Just put your feet up, get to the pub.
Exactly. Yeah.
There'll still be somebody at the top who's doing the but you've taken
orchestrating or whatever.
Yeah, I guess you've taken more of the decision makers out and left one decision maker where there might have been a few before, because you've got rid of some of those processes that each one would have been overseen by someone. I guess the ultimate is whether the guy right at the top, I mean, there's always going to be a CEO, and a board, and maybe the layer below that. But a lot of the jobs that are replaced by AI, then I mean, we talk about this all the time on the podcast. That's the worrying
feels like really
transition, I think.
Accelerated automation, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it is worrying for everyone, because your typical CEO would probably quite like to not have all these fucking people that they've got to deal with and pay money to, and have HR departments to deal with and all that sort of thing. Having a bunch of agents and drones and robots
the investors, the shareholders, just want a low-cost operation that runs really well and keeps customers happy, so that they can make money and have like returns.
Yeah.
And if you're like, the people love like Nokia Technologies, the licensing bit, because it's got 90% profit margins.
Yeah,
because all the work's done somewhere else, and then you just book it as profit.
And most of it was done years ago.
Yeah, so if you have businesses like that, they're really attractive to investors, and those are the bits that everyone gets excited about. So they don't care about the staff. That's a societal worry. That is.
And that's where I think things are headed. Like some anecdotal experiences I've had. I think I had a little moan on behalf of my wife about Zara's customer service.
Oh yeah.
But we've got other ones, like she bought an air fryer from Curry's months ago, and then it's DPD who did the delivery, and they just gave it to someone else. Yeah,
DPD outsourced it.
Well, no, Curry's obviously outsourced the delivery to DPD, and they just gave it to someone else. And
a neighbour.
Well, just some rando, we don't even know. And they got some photo, but of someone's fucking doormat or something.
Not.
And Cathy, my wife's been chasing this up, and no one will take responsibility for it.
Right.
And so there's all this buck passing, and I think these things, I mean, it could just be that my wife's doing it all wrong, because it seems to be happening to her quite a lot.
I hope she doesn't watch this podcast, by the way.
Even if she did, she wouldn't have got this far.
I'd have been in serious trouble if I'd said that.
I'm going to send her a clip.
Yeah. No. She knows I say it with love.
I don't think it's just her. I think customer service generally.
Exactly.
Is
and that's where I was headed. And I think it's getting worse, because I think, to the point the three of us were just making, I think increasingly companies are going to accept that there's going to be some shitty experiences, but those are the table stakes for all the amazing savings they make. And so so our net promoter score might go down a little bit, but look at all this money.
Amazon just eat up the cost to just go, oh, sorry, here's a new one.
Exactly.
Whereas Currys / DPD don't, which just makes us want to go back to Amazon next time.
But I think this poor customer service is far before AI.
Right. Okay.
This is before AI chatbots. This is, unfortunately, too many sort of call centre support staff who aren't empowered to actually make decisions. They're following a script. They've got to refer everything to a manager, and there's maybe one manager covering, I don't know, a team of 40 or 50. And it's, low pay, not rewarding, and they're shouted at all day.
I completely agree.
I'd be interested to know about the impact on call centres of like chatbots, because that's the low-hanging fruit, I think, for generative AI, or it was certainly perceived to be that when
that was the original use
came
case,
along.
wasn't
And
it?
even if you talk to people like, she's not the CIO anymore, but Harmin Mehta, when she was at BT, and I asked her like how it was being deployed, and I said it just seems to be about chatbots taking over customer service roles, and she went, well, don't underplay that, because that's like a really big opportunity. But I've never seen any research on, I mean, you see these headline numbers like Verizon going down by 40,000 since Vestberg and planning to cut another 15,000, but I've never seen any research that shows what's happened in one particular domain, or like department rather, as a consequence of AI. And I'd be really interested to know whether these call centres that used to be full of people have really kind of gone down a lot, and instead of having 30 or 40 guys answering the phones, you've got a handful, and a lot of them are just sort of maintaining chatbots, or whether that's all just talk and it's cuts have actually happened in other areas. I have no idea, actually. But
I mean, in the research that I've seen, not in this particular research that we've conducted, but when we used to work for TM Forum, that customer service and the use of chatbots was the most common use case for AI among telcos.
Right.
That was sort of the most widespread. I guess arguably it's also the easiest domain to
And customer service is a big overhead for telcos, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then I think AI is an easy replacement when you have low-skilled workers who don't have any autonomy, any power to, provide incentives and apologies to customers where things have gone
User
wrong.
initiative.
Yeah, exactly. So then you might as
What's
well
the
replace them with
difference? Yeah,
AI.
what's the difference between
that
that?
problem started, and that decrease in customer service happened long before AI.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
No, I think you're spot on.
Well, I mean, I think before the chatbot, there was this phase where they kind of outsourced it to India, didn't they? That was always the thing, like 15, 20 years ago, maybe. There was this outsourcing to India, and it never really worked that well. Because,
and that was a telecoms enabled thing in the first place.
Yeah, and I always found that when I remember calling about broadband problems to the provider we had at the time, which was ages ago, and it was a terrible connection, like fuzzy and hissing, and you're talking to someone who's got quite, through no fault of their own, but they've got quite a strong accent.
A strong Indian accent can be quite impenetrable to the
You're not
Western ear.
used to hearing like a Glaswegian one, maybe. You wouldn't have a problem with if you live in the UK.
But do you
It's
not
like,
remember
oh my God.
that there was when a lot of call centres moved to India, and then there were complaints about that exact experience, that there were then stories of those customer support staff in India being trained on their accent, and then you'd then have all these locals walking around with a Liverpudlian accent and things.
Brilliant.
I
Just
love
so that when the customer phones them, they think they're in the UK, but they're not.
Wow.
Imagine it working the other way around. Wouldn't be. Don't think it'd be acceptable.
No. Yeah, no. One of my little golden rules on this pod is don't try and do non-European
Don't do Asian accents.
Yeah. That's why Xi Jinping sounds like Red
Unless
Winston.
it's an Australian one. I said that.
It's just non-Anglo / European accent.
Yeah, you're going to offend someone.
You can try and impersonate. Yeah, that's allowed. But
Oh yeah, we can have a go at the French all day. That's fine.
yeah, that's politically acceptable.
But so look, we've been chatting for a little while, and we haven't. I imagine there might be some other little data points that you want to tease. So let me throw the ball back to you, and I promise to try my best not to interrupt you with a fucking ridiculous tangent.
That wasn't a
fine.
tangent that was irrelevant, though. It was your car one that when you were talking about.
Yeah, well, fine. Then that's what I'm vowing not to do.
Right.
Okay, fine. So one of the areas that we asked was around which technologies are telcos planning to invest in over the next sort of 12 months or so. And APAC, so I guess unsurprisingly, investing in data centres to support AI demand.
The telcos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is quite interesting.
Specifically in APAC. And then there's still a lot of work to be done around decommissioning networks. So I think it's around 60% are still actively commissioning 3G, now 2G as well in the UK.
Right.
And that's something we're thinking about at the moment, PSTN as well. And from a new service delivery point of view, there's sort of three top areas that telcos are investing in were enterprise authentication.
Yeah.
enterprise connectivity. So
What does enterprise authentication mean?
I took that to mean, the work around Open Gateway and sort of knowing your customer.
Open API stuff.
Yeah.
Right, network exposure,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
network exposure APIs, which seems to be having the most success in the fintech world. From a security point of view and fraud point of view.
Okay.
And then the third was around IoT solutions as well.
Okay.
Does that come as a surprise?
It does come as the IT thing comes as a surprise.
It's just been a struggle to extract money from it, isn't it?
Well, that's one area where I've heard, like, one of the themes seems to be that's a massive deal in China, for instance. Like, if you think about IoT even as like connected drones, like that's massive in China now. I talked to a guy, I'm always mentioning him on the pod, but Earl Lum, like he did a load of research into what China's doing with its sort of 5G standalone network and its 5G advanced network, and there's these trials going on. I think the Chinese telcos actually alluded to it in their reports, and the guy who was at DTW from China Mobile was talking about it, but doing like drone testing of deliveries. Like, you get your Amazon delivery, it would be like a sort of little thing flying in and dropping it off in your porch and then taking off again. And
a bit like the couriers do now, where they just chuck it in their van.
But like, imagine that if that happened on Swaffield Road, you'd still be you'd be thinking this is a bit futuristic, isn't it? Rather than
they were trialling that in Milton Keynes, though, weren't they? I think that.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Wow.
For some reason, I don't know the history, but Milton Keynes seems to be this hotspot for a lot of technology trials. So
it's quite open.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's quite new. And they love a roundabout in Milton Keynes, I can confirm that.
Okay.
Yes.
I used to work there for a bit in my previous life. But yeah, I suspect it's quite new and open plan and low rise, so it's probably not bad for drones buzzing about.
I remember going to Milton Keynes for a demo of what's the main altnet in the UK, the main
City
one,
Fibre.
City Fibre's tech, when they did their tie up with Vodafone, and we actually went into someone's house.
Right.
In Milton Keynes.
Some normie.
I remember Ian Scales being on the trip as well, and there's the Vodafone guys there, and this woman sort of showing off her super fast connection, how good it was for sort of uploading things, because she was
making everyone a cup of tea.
I don't know what she was doing. She was like a yoga instructor or something, so she was like having to sort of do streaming and all this, and of course Ian Scales asked really aggressive questions.
Ian Scales is classic. Was he was Telecoms TV, wasn't he?
I think he still does stuff for Telecoms TV.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a really good journalist.
I remember,
I'm not saying that he's asking aggressive questions.
I remember I once went to a dinner. I won't even name the company. It doesn't matter. But it's like a proper, US multinational company, and it's a dinner. It's at the top of the walkie-talkie. It's all really posh, supposed to impress us grizzled hacks. And it was all nice sort of small talk. And then Ian Scales just went straight in, started asking the most fucking serious questions. And you could tell they were just like a deer in the headlights. And I just thought, I'll defer to you on this, Zoe. I'm always curious whenever, I'm chatting to a friend who works in PR, whether it's agency or client side, whether there are little dossiers on us. And
absolutely. Yeah.
And presumably if you were in charge of introducing me or Ian or both of us to someone, you go, this is what they're like, buy them a beer, and they'll eat out the palm of your hand.
That's all your dossier says.
That's pretty much it.
And
Brides with beer.
Your dossier.
That's probably just an abbreviation, isn't it? It's just BWB, bride with beer.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have a dinner and you're going to have someone like Ian Scales there, presumably the dossier goes, expect well-researched, borderline rude question.
Yeah,
but they still seem surprised by it.
He needs to be invited next year. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to do that, right?
Yeah.
The spokespeople, and some of them aren't willing to be part of that. So
yes.
Well, it's a tough one for us journalists because we're a fairly cheap date. You can just buy us a few beers, a posh dinner at the top of walkie-talkie is a fucking upgrade on most of the time.
Is that the one that melts cars?
It did. That's the one bit of they had to do a bit of crisis comms over that. I think there was one story once because it's a concave building that it was acting as a lens, and setting cars on fire. And isn't it amazing? Isn't it an amazing comms thing? How I think there was just one story, and I think they probably debunked it at the time. It certainly hasn't persisted, and there aren't cars blowing up next to this building.
Do you reckon that's what happened?
But that's still the first thing that comes into Ian's head. Yeah, I reckon that was it.
It was a funny-looking building that set that car on fire.
I think that was probably it. But anyway, I said we wouldn't go off a tangent, and we have.
Yeah,
It's cars again.
I invited it. I asked
You
for
invited it.
It's fine.
So yeah, what else?
Well, the other part of our research, as I mentioned, is how vendors can be visible to operators, right? So, that's our job. Most of our clients are vendors, although we do work with operators as well.
You do?
And so, we ask that when you are researching new technology, when you're sort of starting that decision-making process, how do you go about finding new vendors? And overwhelmingly, it was a reliance on third-party voices, right? So earned media, analysts, and trade
So we
associations.
like to hear this. We like these findings.
Yeah, I've picked my audience well.
Yeah.
So I think it's 97% rely on third-party voices because we all know what it's like, right? You don't want to speak to a salesperson until you really, really have to.
Yes.
So a lot of operators
Because you know what you're going to get from them.
Yeah. You're going to be badgered.
Yeah.
So a lot of operators are like anyone really. I think in buying anything, any B2B sort of technology, you don't want to engage with a salesperson until you're ready. So that just means that it's hugely important to be visible online. And for the first time, we asked about the relevance of LLMs in that research process. And 14% of our respondents, so fairly small, I guess, when you think about it, but are relying on LLMs to identify vendors for them. So, if they're looking to purchase a particular technology, they will start their research process there.
Which is, on one level, you get it, that's the trend. But on another level, most purchases within telecoms are fairly big ticket items. It seems like a bit of an entry-level way to start your research, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's
just
why...
like Googling, what BSS should I buy?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
When you get appointed head of OSS, BSS for some telco in the future, that's what you'll do.
You could just bluff it.
That's the future, is people
You go,
like you running it and looking it up on...
I'll be in the interview with my phone. What would you buy? I would buy Amdocs for this and Netcracker for that. And
I do the same.
Going onto Google Shopping and typing in massive MIMO. Yeah.
Where do I get my massive MIMO 64 TRX from?
Anything on eBay?
And I go Huawei. But beware, and then all sorts of caveats.
So tell us more about how important journalists are to the world of telecoms.
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted to hear? Really?
Yeah.
Is that why you got Zoe on there?
Well, I'm getting deja vu. We've definitely had this in previous iterations.
Yes.
Where I paid most attention to them saying how trade media, perhaps a couple spring immediately to mind, are particularly important for them. No, but I mean, obviously, I'm half joking, and I'm obviously self-interested in this area, but it is important, and the term earned media, I think, is actually really descriptive. I think I was just joking before we came in. When sometimes we get people might moan about our coverage or whatever, and if I'm feeling particularly undiplomatic and I'm accommodating, I go, if you want to control the message, buy a fucking ad, because that's not earned media.
Yeah.
Earned media is you have to persuade grizzled, cantankerous.
Or you hire a PR agency and they have to earn it.
To persuade
yeah.
Yeah, and and I always say, I'll say it quite openly, CC's always been right at the top of a list for me because apart from the individuals that I've dealt with over the years, and obviously Paul and Rich are a constant there, it's the leaving aside the beer part of it, although that is an intrinsic part of it.
Absolutely.
Certainly, me and Richard got some good Mobile World Congress stories.
I'm sure.
But they bothered to get to know us, and I also think for an agency to get to know the journalists they're dealing with it should be an intrinsic part of the service they offer their clients.
It absolutely is. And I mean, it's probably one of the most common things that we are asked by clients and prospective clients as well is, who do you have relationships with? And it's you have to manage expectations there, right? I was asked this by a prospective client just yesterday, and I said, well, I'm going to be here today and seeing Ian tomorrow, and was with them in Dublin last week, but that may get you guys to open our email and to consider the pitch, right?
Yeah.
But if we're pitching you utter dog shit of a story that's not of interest, you're not going to cover it just for us.
Yeah.
But it will get you to at least
Yeah,
open
definitely
email,
will.
I hope.
Yeah.
Because you know our names.
And you're also more likely to get frank feedback from us. If it is dog
Absolutely.
shit, we'll
Yeah.
say this is why it's dog shit, and then
Yeah.
at least you can feed that back. And
Yeah.
I know that's a useful channel as well.
It really is, yeah, because often we will give clients that feedback. It's our job to manage their expectations about how newsworthy this story is, if it is at all.
Yeah.
But often they want to hear that direct from you guys. And
Yeah.
if you have that relationship, we can ring you up and say, so why isn't it of interest? But if
Yeah.
you don't,
Yeah, I
you
always
just
think
get
that's
radio
weird
silence.
that some agencies don't seem to, recognise that. The most
think it's a
important
bit-
thing for the agency, really, from my interactions with from the perspective of the agency interacting with the media, is they really need to get to sort of know the writers and the.
I don't think it's
editors.
unrelated to the great point Zoe was making earlier about customer service in general.
Yeah,
Really big name agencies, I don't know, Weber or Nelson Boss or whatever, these big multinational ones. I'm not singling any individual one out. I'm just picking them as a category. They'll obviously employ bright, motivated, hardworking people, but very few of them outside of you lot, Babel, Liberty, maybe one or two others. Would I know any of them at all? Have I met?
yeah.
Or all that sort of thing. And I think
It's an
and then-
email thing sometimes.
yeah,
It's
and they perform a role. And I know we're in this little sort of niche, little trade journalist backwater,
Yeah.
and maybe these people are better at getting to know FT or Wall Street Journal or whatever. I mean, there's a massive business to be had in all sorts of industry niches.
Well, there's-
such as telecoms.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that those agencies are doing that are never going to appeal to the FTs and the Wall Street Journals
Yeah.
and the Telegraphs and the Timeses of the world. They're just too, and okay, those companies can aspire to be covered by that. But even big companies, if you're covering something a bit nitty gritty like an open RAN swap in a bit of the country, you're probably not going to find the FT writing about
Well, then
it.
it's fucking narrows down to about 2 or 3 geezers.
They
full
might have
stop.
done 5 years ago, maybe, when someone was linking it to the big pushback
Yeah.
on Huawei, and they went into that a little bit more. But I don't think they do it very much.
Well,
now,
then that's another
so-
challenge with telecoms, isn't it? I mean, nothing to the aforementioned point we were making earlier about it being low growth. Telecoms isn't very exciting when your focus is on stock market movements and stuff like that, because telecom stocks are boring as fuck, aren't they? They just flatline, really, don't they?
Well, Nokia's went up a bit a while ago. Didn't
I
it?
was thinking more operators. Although you made that good point, and BT's been strangely volatile.
BT's been up 70% in the last
so maybe,
year and a half.
Maybe I'll just say,
I'll just say it
maybe I'll
again.
just retract that.
If you bought BT when Alison Kirkby took over, you bought BT stock.
Yeah, when was that?
You'd be very happy.
April last year.
April.
You'd have made 70.
Oh, yes, of course.
70%. It was pretty good.
You're right,
It's not
yeah,
like
yeah.
Nvidia, maybe, but yeah, it's still. It's
Yeah,
still
and you would have
it's
been
still
up
decent.
100% a couple of months ago. By the way, Oracle, yeah. Oh, BT.
Okay, so it's gone down
BT's
a bit.
gone down a lot in the last. Is it the 1 month thing? Yeah, no, but it has gone down. It peaked at. In the last month, it peaked at 187. It's now at 176. But no, there's a better peak than that. It peaked at 222, and it's now 176.
I don't know
And
why
I
it's
just
gone
want to say
down.
quickly while I get off Google Finance. I know you were just about to say something, so I'll defer to you.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly say this about Oracle. Sorry, they spiked. I think we chatted about them on the pod because it turned out they were much more elbows deep in the whole AI thing than I'd realised. They spiked back in
Or even they
September.
realised.
Yeah, and anyway, they've now lost it and more.
Yeah.
They're basically back down to round about the level they were pre-spike.
So
Anyways.
it turns out nobody believed their whole we're the multi-clouds, we're the guys that are doing this AI stuff from a kind of agnostic cloud perspective. Everybody bought into that story, and we were sitting there going, "Hey."
I think
And
a
some
big
other
part
people
of it is
saying
that
that.
all the AI-related stocks have fallen off in the last few weeks.
Yeah, but they've not done anything out of it at all then, basically, have they?
No. I mean, they're still up 30% on the year, but they're at the same level they were in September before they had a spike. Anyway, sorry, Zoe, you were about to say something.
I was just going back to the PR agency networking point.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that AI can never replace, right? That so much of my job is counselling clients on what we know you guys are going to be interested in, what you've covered before, what's a story and what's not. Yes, AI can write us a press release and write some short commentary, regurgitate things over and over. But I firmly believe that my job is safe because it's so much of that soft skills of building a relationship with you guys. Yeah, maybe I won't be here in 5 years' time.
No, totally. Joking aside, yes.
I couldn't take you out for a beer otherwise and find out what you're working on, and I can't work with a client either.
Yeah, and what you're going to do, and what human beings are still far better at than the most powerful LLM, is collate you could call them data points, a million different data points, experiences, conversations, bits of background reading, whatever, and then articulate them in a bespoke way for your client, depending on what they want to ask about. And this level of not just intelligence, but social engagement, I think AI is still a long way off doing.
Well, yeah, it's all on the internet, but when we get physical AI, and you've got...
What's physical AI?
Well, it's like when you've got Sean Young from Blade Runner sitting next to you in the pub
robots.
saying, do you fancy a beer, Scott?
Yeah.
And she turns out to be an AI.
I'm not going to turn down a beer from Sean Young, am I?
Well, before you said you would if you knew that she was a replicant.
Oh, I'd have a beer.
Would you turn down a beer from a robot?
No. I probably would turn it down. Actually, I'd be like, no, I can buy my own fucking beer robot. But yes, as your point is, as it gets more replicant and it comes closer to the interaction with a human being, those lines blur.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all. I think that's all science fiction anyway. To be honest, I think we're so far away from that world.
They give you an alcohol-free one, and you tell them, "No, give me one with alcohol," and they go, "I'm afraid I can't do that."
Have you seen these robots? They're not interacting with you in the way that a person would, obviously. So
not yet, Ian. Not yet.
Well, then not even close, and that's in the same way that you interact with a chatbot, and you pretty soon realise that it's not a person. You would realise that one of these robots isn't. I
know, but these things.
Well.
The problem with change is it happens. I mean, people use a slightly gruesome metaphor. They talk about a boiling frog metaphor, which is there's some apocryphal thing where if you put a frog in a pot of cold water and then heat it up, the frog will never work out when it's time to jump out. I don't know if that's true. I stress I've never tried this experiment myself.
Okay.
But this change happens very incrementally, and you accept each little increment if it's small enough. And I actually think a lot of public policy and stuff is done like this. Mm-hmm. Every now and then they'll go too hard, too fast, and everyone goes fuck off.
Yeah.
And then all they do is just retreat and go, okay, let's split that into increments of 10 and do them one at a time, and they'll still end up with the same end result. They're just sugaring the pill a lot more.
So we look confused by boiling frogs. So if you drop it into water that's boiling, it just jumps off apparently off the surface.
Okay.
But if you put it in water and heat it up until it's boiling, the frog just basically dies because it doesn't realise quickly enough that it needs to get out, and it just ends up.
You haven't got the shock factor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, here's another analogy. When you get a haircut and in about 5 minutes you're like, it's pretty much done, but then they spend like 10 times the time to finish the 10%.
The last bits.
Yeah.
That's
I feel
when
like
they mess it up usually.
AI will be like, it will get to 90% really quickly. And be like, oh my god, it's so fast, we're going, and then the last 10% will never get there, basically.
And the last 10, and that last 10% will be the stuff that we notice and get annoyed by.
Because we look at Will Smith from 2 years ago eating spaghetti, and then now we're like, oh my god, it's like we're getting quickly.
It's already kind of doing that, I think, with generative AI. That it's got to that stage where it's reached a ceiling, and the answer of Sam Altman and this is why I think it's very cynical. This keep throwing more GPUs at the problem and keep throwing like more sophisticated LLMs, not more sophisticated, but LLMs that are ever bigger and can do more and more parameters. It's a law of diminishing returns. They're not getting as much out of it as they were. You've still got the problem.
That's one of the reasons I think the AI bubble's deflating a bit right now.
Yeah, you've got this problem of hallucinations is still, which I think is a weird word anyway. It's just basically getting it wrong. You've still got that issue.
Oh, but I think it's descriptive because they don't just get it wrong; they fucking make shit up.
Yeah,
they're not. If they just got it wrong, or even better, just went, "I don't know that."
Yeah,
that'd be fine. But they don't. They fill in the gap by making shit up. That's why hallucination isn't such a bad descriptor.
That's still as much of an issue as it was, and I think one thing that convinced me a bit was that meeting we had with Nscale 1 year ago. Before anybody really knew who they were.
Yeah, it was like a last thing last year.
And the CTO, who was at the table sitting next to me, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
His surname was Power,
yeah.
I think.
Said David Power, was it? Maybe?
Yeah, that'll do. Dave. Dave the Power.
I don't think it
Can't believe his name is David. It wasn't David. It must be something else. It's you with your everyone's called Dave thing. Anyway, his take was that, and he's obviously, Nscale seems to know what it's doing. It appears, and
it does seem to know what it's doing.
It appears to know what it's doing, and he said that he didn't necessarily think that putting a lot more GPUs at the problem and putting like bigger large language models at the problem was the route to AGI, that you needed some kind of new paradigm.
And lots of people have said that.
Yeah, they probably have, but they're not said it to me. I've just
that's not to diminish what he said, but I'm saying
he was telling us.
Other
he's a guy
similarly bright people have said that.
And I thought, they need a different approach to it, and probably that approach is as far away as it's ever been because neuroscientists still don't understand the workings of the human brain.
Quite.
Yeah. So how Jensen Huang, how's he going to figure out how to replicate what the human mind does?
Jensen Huang doesn't have to figure out. Sam Altman does.
Sam Altman, rather. Yeah.
Jensen Huang's just got to keep persuading him
he doesn't.
that the way he's doing it now is the right way.
That's not his problem. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when Sam Altman goes, actually, we don't need more GPUs. We're going to do it this way instead. We can use an Intel processor as well. And
so before we move it on, Zoe, are there any last things that you wanted to flag up about your
There's loads
business?
of it. It just started.
No, don't worry.
And we're fucking hour and a half in or something. Time flies, doesn't it, when you do the pod?
It does, absolutely. It's been fun. I just had some closing thoughts really around that intention investment gap I mentioned earlier, that and if I think about it from vendors' perspective, so often the clients that we're trying to help reach those operators, that there's this real gap between telco's ambition and and their optimism for how they embrace AI, and they're incredibly confident about the results they can get from AI and their ability to achieve those customer sort of outcomes, but they're not necessarily putting their money where their mouth is at the moment, and still sort of behaving in that risk-averse way, focused on sort of developing core connectivity, even though they know they need to be innovating in this other area. So it makes things quite difficult from a vendor perspective as to where do you market to, the head or the heart almost. And
Indeed.
those that can sort of bridge the gap between the two, and help telcos achieve that efficiency, but also with a view to new service developments, going to bring that new revenue and hopefully that new growth that we can all talk about sometime soon, that long-awaited.
That'd be great.
That'd be nice.
Great to talk about that one day.
That maybe people will spend some money on advertising.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, you might have heard us in the pod in the past. We're sort of somewhat conflicted. While we're being brutally honest about the industry, obviously, if the industry was really booming and growing at double digits a year, that would presumably reflect well on the revenue for our websites and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's really interesting. And there's a whole different rabbit hole we could have gone down about that risk aversion and sources of growth. And we touched on it a little bit at the start about ARPU and how unwilling we all are as consumers. You're talking about your mate Mark, to pay more. I think the problem is that the bind the industry's found itself in is that the table stakes, the market expectations are now, that it's commoditized in so much as we don't, per your description to Mark, regular consumers don't think about what's in it. They just expect it to happen, just like we expect the water to run or the lights to switch on. And B, it's a sufficiently competitive market that, especially in Europe, prices have been driven down by competition so much that there's not much margin there to do all that investment and that sort of thing. So, it's a perennial problem, and it's interesting to know that your data supports that. And so, before we move on to other stuff, I might have a quick break before we move on to other stuff as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask one of those.
Yeah, you're going to ask for that, way. Tell us about when it's going to come out and how people can find this research. Is it free?
Yes, it's free. You do have to give us your data, though.
Yeah. So it's a form.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Cool.
So
Wouldn't be a
then-
good marketer without a gated.
So he can ring you up and try and
form.
flog you stuff.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, it's a free report. It'll be going live on our website within the next 2 weeks. Don't have a confirmed date,
Okay.
but we'll be going live soon. And that's a report available to everyone to view. But we also keep back some data specifically just for our clients and our prospects
Fair
to
enough.
obviously help
Yep.
us sell our services more.
Yeah.
And then we'll be doing regional cuts of the data, so specifically looking at, say, North American operators versus APAC and,
Cool.
and so on. So
So
there'll
just
be more
Google
to come.
CC Group, is it still?
Yes, CC Group website is still live.
And that's
so,
where it'll be.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's have a quick break there, and then we'll come back. Okay, and we're back in the room, and I think we're really, in terms of other news,
There hasn't been any.
there hasn't been that much, but we thought of sort of aggregating a few, I suppose, what you call geopolitical things. So we chatted last week about the perennial topic of Huawei in Europe and all that stuff. And I wrote, I might just start with a couple I wrote that are just interesting. I just think sometimes, and I'm sure you have this too, Zoe, when you're sort of collating media and seeing what's going on, you just look at the overall direction of travel. You just see a cluster of stories in a certain direction. You go, okay, the narrative seems to be going this way a little bit. And so I wrote a story at the start of the week, which was headlined, Chinese-made buses in Europe suspected of having an OTA kill switch over the air. And this started off in Norway.
Buses made in China,
So
sold to Europe.
Exactly.
Wow.
Buses, specifically a vendor called Yutong, which I think is like a leading
That's
electric
definitely
bus.
a Chinese maker, isn't it?
It does sound quite Chinese. It doesn't sound Norwegian, does it?
No.
But they've got them in Norway. In fact, I've got a photo I nicked off a company called Ruter, which is a Norwegian public transport company, of this Yutong green bus, but with traffic in a very Norwegian-looking way written on top of it.
Like the traffic or something.
Yeah, Ikke traffic, whatever the fuck that means in Norwegian. And they done a study and they gone, look, these Chinese buses got a SIM card in them, and maybe that could be used as an over-the-air thing to shut them down. I'm assuming, and Yutong.
So it's just a suggestion. It hasn't been confirmed. Or?
Yeah, I wonder if here we are. I've got a direct quote from the Yutong study. This was from a few weeks ago. It just sort of got a bit more into the mainstream this week. So they did a quote comprehensive safety test of electric buses. Quote, the Chinese bus from Yutong has the capability for autonomous software updates over the air. This means that the manufacturer has direct digital access to each individual bus for software upgrades, updates and diagnostics. There is access to the control system for battery and power supply via mobile network through a Romanian SIM card. Why it's a Romanian SIM card, fuck knows. In theory, therefore... So
Who's this from? Is this from the Norwegian?
This is from Ruter, yeah. In theory, therefore, this bus can be stopped or rendered inoperable by the manufacturer.
Right.
So then now they're having a proper look at it. Then the Danes got involved and went, fuck it, I'm not even going to try a Danish accent. I'll just end up sounding like a Swedish chef or something.
Yeah.
But they went, we'll have a look. And then now I think it was FT was saying that the UK is having a look.
Right.
So that's one little bit of...
But they're okay in Germany. They love all that stuff.
Yes, apparently so. Because they want to flog beamers to China, as we know.
Yeah.
And then there was just one other little thing, and then I'll hand over to you, Ian, to say if you've got anything more to throw into the pot, where I did a bit of, I think it was journalism. Yeah, there we are. Who was I journalising? Fucking hell, I've gone and buried the lead. Oh, there it is. Bloomberg. And there was a leak to Bloomberg, which...
Burying the lead.
Yeah, I know, it's shocking. Where the headline was, EU explores Huawei ban in mobile networks of member countries. And I actually... I always say on the pod, it's not like me and Ian are chatting to each other the whole time during the week, and we're not. But this is one where I did flag it up. And we both concluded that this isn't necessarily new news because the EU's been exploring Huawei bans for fucking years. But again, I thought I'd write it up just because these things don't exist in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. When a leak goes to Bloomberg, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this that you want to share, Zoe, but I think titles like Bloomberg, FT, Wall Street Journal, Reuters, one of the functions they serve is for establishment, especially like deep state type of organizations, and also companies to put up trial balloons and just leaks and just do controlled leaks out into the public domain and see how it goes, because they're always the ones that have got the people close to the matter who want to remain anonymous so they don't get sacked or whatever the mitigation they give is. And I just thought, for me, this was a classic example of the EU. So this would have been an EU leak. It wasn't explicitly stated by Bloomberg, I must stress. This is me reading between the lines. But an EU leak to say, look, we're still thinking about this shit. And the reason I wrote it up is I more wanted to speculate about why the EU is choosing to leak this stuff right now. So there were those are two stories I wrote earlier on this week that are anecdotal evidence of there being a slight raising of the temperature to get rid of Chinese stuff from Europe a bit more.
It might have been that.
Yeah.
Or it might just have been the journalist in question who wrote the Bloomberg story. I mean, there've been a lot of stuff. I think at the last pod we talked about what's going on in Germany at the moment.
Yeah, we did.
Being aware of, like,
You wrote a story on it.
I wrote a story on it of what's going on in Germany and that they were going to sort of explore their contacts and get some kind of reaction to it all, you know, and then because to me the story itself was there's no reflection on the journalist, who I think is really good in this case, but it was it wasn't one of the strongest stories, like that we're having talks about what to do about Huawei. I mean, I imagine they're always having talks about what to do about Huawei, because even at the start of the year,
there wasn't much new news in this.
The woman who took over from Thierry Breton, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, and it's kind of hard to pronounce anyway, but she even at the start
is she
of the year,
Finn, Henna Virkkunen or something?
Oh, there you are, Henna Virkkunen, yeah, that's her.
Look at me, smashing.
So it's not actually that hard to pronounce, I just can't remember her name.
Normally you're the one.
Yeah.
Normally I'm the one who struggles with these things.
But she was saying right in sort of January, February time that it's still shocking, she didn't use that word, but something like that there's so much like high risk vendor equipment used in European Union, and maybe we need to consider other measures to do something about it. And, you know, you've heard like Nokia being a lot more aggressive recently under their new management about Chinese vendors in Europe, and sort of obviously putting pressure on the EU to try and do something about it. And then you've got some of these documents that have come out that, like, maybe a lot of mainstream press don't look at those, but I kind of get sent them by interested parties, where the regulator's gone and changed the definition of the radio access network to be critical. There was a really interesting one in Finland that kind of went under the microscope a bit, where you can actually go to the Finnish regulator's website and see all the responses to the consultation they put out. And their approach was that they want to reclassify the radio access network to be as critical as the core. And then you can see who's responded, and it's like, here's Huawei's comments on it. And they went with it. They basically went, we think they're wrong to be doing that. Yeah. And it's like, why do they think they're wrong to be doing that? I wonder, is it maybe because the EU considers that you shouldn't be in critical infrastructure? And then Germany's done the same thing. Germany's had this Bundesnetzagentur, I think is the regulator, that's put out this document where, if you look at the one they did in 2021, they consider the radio access network to be non-critical. And whenever you've heard DT's boss kind of justifying them using antennas and stuff from Huawei, he's gone, well, their regulator here doesn't consider it to be critical. It's like the core is, but this isn't. So, and then they've put this one out in the last week or so. Well, it must have been before the last pod, because we talked about it. They're reclassifying, not just the management system, which is the thing that got addressed in legislation last year, that you can keep Huawei in the RAN as long as you get rid of its management system.
Right.
But the whole of the RAN will be considered to be a critical component, which would then be very hard for them not to have a knock-on effect where the telcos come under pressure to start removing the actual radio access network equipment.
And that wipes them out completely, right?
And then that basically takes them out of Germany and the EU if they're gone from if they can't even do like the base stations essentially and the stuff that goes around it. Then
and by the way, in the Bloomberg thing, there was one other thing I didn't really focus on it, just probably because it didn't fit in with my particular narrative of the story. But there's one little paragraph I'll read verbatim. It says, Ms. Virkkunen is examining ways to limit the use of Chinese equipment suppliers in fixed-line networks as countries push for rapid deployment of state-of-the-art fibre cables to expand high-speed internet.
And
so
the
fixed-line part of it was maybe a nuance that was a bit newer? Or
a little bit, but it's happened in the UK. So the UK's latest sort of tweaks that are not that recent actually now. It's going back probably 3 years, but you have to have, I think Huawei has to be out of fixed line stuff as well by 2030. So I remember talking to Howard Watson at BT about this, and he was like pushing for them to be allowed to have it until the early 2030s. But there's a restriction there where they can't have them in the FTTH network anymore either. Now, I don't know what's going on at BT on that because I've not asked them recently, but they had Huawei, I think, quite heavily at first, and then we're moving towards like a mixture of Nokia and Ad. What I think is really interesting about this, actually, now that I've thought about it, is what like BT had Huawei and Nokia as their FTTH providers, and then they went and got Adtran to come in and do something, and it was like, why have they got Adtran to come in? And you look at it in retrospect now, I think it's quite similar to what's going on in Germany, where Deutsche Telekom is swapping out like 3,000 Huawei sites with Nokia, and Vodafone's like introducing Samsung into the network with Open RAN. And, you know, you talk to people on the Vodafone side, and it's like, it's not just densification. This is pretty much what I got told in Fuse. There's like replacement of sites that are already there. That's part of it. Why would they do that to a small extent if they're not kind of, they're sort of hedging for...
Well, it makes me think of the boiling frog metaphor again. But in this particular case, so, you know, I think it's quite obvious, and there are well-publicised examples of this. If you go too hard too soon, the Chinese government's going to take exception to it. And there's cultural stuff, you know, I'm speaking from a position of almost total ignorance about Chinese culture, so I'm going to hedge my position. But there are cultural things about face in that part of the world that are even more profound than they are here. And so I think there are ways in which you can just insinuate things sufficiently gradually and under the radar that it never turns into a diplomatic incident. And maybe that's it. And that's why this sort of direction of travel type of thing is interesting. And it does feel to me inevitable that eventually, and it could still take decades to play out, there will be no Chinese vendors in European networks, but we're trying to do it softly.
So the latest one in Germany, which was yesterday, I think, and I think only Bloomberg and the South China Morning Post got hold of it, was this talk that, who's the Chancellor? Merz. Latest Chancellor.
Don't know.
German Chancellor. There you are. Was at some industry conference yesterday.
I was going to say Rachel Reeves.
And made some comments about high-risk vendors.
No. Merkel, you mean?
No, the German Chancellor, the new one.
Merz.
Metz. It's Merz or Metz.
Jesus Christ, just keep talking.
Anyway, he was he made some comments about high-risk vendors in the network and what the approach would be, because there's been all this pressure. There's been this...
It's Merz. MERZ.
Yeah. There's been these like updates from the German regulator, and there's been talk of like Germany paying the telcos to take the operators out.
That's and they've done a lot of lobbying, haven't they? They've gone, it's going to fucking be pricey.
Yeah,
need some help.
There's Verkinen leaning on them. There's like Nokia making a fuss. There's like a lot of pressure. There's a lot of political opponents in Germany who don't like the fact that there's so much Huawei in the network. And then the latest thing was this conference yesterday where Merz said they won't be allowed in 6G at all. No, like Chinese vendors in 6G. Which I know some of our friends regard that as kicking the can down the road. And there's one name that will occur immediately. He was sort of pinging me last night about it. But if you're planning for... 6G is going to be an evolution of 5G, as Ericsson sort of presenting it. And I think even Iago Tenorio this week or last week was saying like the infrastructure that you roll out, the server infrastructure that you roll out now with like something like Granite Rapids, which is the Intel platform, is good enough to do 6G on. This gets into the GPU stuff, but we're not going to have time for that. You don't want to be building your network today with... if there's going to be rules coming in that stop you from using Huawei in 6G with Huawei in the mix, basically. So you're going to start thinking about that already.
It's a future-proofing aspect.
It's like a future-proofing aspect. It's like the same way that 4G and 5G, you kind of use the same vendor across the two of them. You know, you don't want to introduce a completely new vendor for 6G. You want to probably have the same people that you've been
And that's what I mean about the inevitability of
technical reasons.
I think it's always been a matter, especially in Germany, notwithstanding their geopolitical conflict of interest of being a big exporter to China. But it's been about people like DT. They're just being pragmatic. They're going, okay, politically, you're getting Trump on the phone going, why have you still got Huawei in your network or whatever? And they're going, okay, we could get rid of it.
I don't think I think that even that side of it these days gets a little bit overplayed. The American pressure. I think the EU itself is concerned about China and China's closeness to Russia and all the sorts of things that upset the EU.
No, quite right. And our mate who you were just alluding to wouldn't thank me for thinking that Europe just does what America tells it. So I'll downplay that angle. But the point is, for whatever the motivation is, they're thinking about it. But then you've got people like DT just being pragmatic and actuarial and going,
they are.
Okay, we're going to probably have to swap this shit out sooner or later, but if we can get some public money to sugar the pill, then so much the better. Yeah. And so we're not going to do it until you bribe us with a bit of public money. And so you get that going.
To our point earlier about the cost of investments that telcos are having to make and the fight against ARPU that they have, if the government has made them swap out, if they've done that U-turn, particularly as they did in the UK,
they're entitled to,
shouldn't they?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
If they make the same mistake again and try and use that vendor for 6G, then of course that's their own mistake. But
it's controversial, I think, because it gets into the whole sort of EU state aid rules and stuff, and like I think someone like 1&1 wouldn't be very happy about it in particular, because they'd say, well, we've taken the advice that came out of the EU and we've built a network that's not got any Chinese components, and people have known about this and they've gone ahead and done it, and then if you give them the money, you don't know how they're going to use it anyway, and if it's going to be used. So I think it's like the UK, for instance, did not say, you take this stuff out and we'll pay for it. No. They're having to fund that themselves.
Yes.
So
I find that
it's a tricky one.
EU rules are hard and fast until France or Germany ask for it, and then suddenly there's a bit of fucking wriggle room. But I think it'd be quite a hard sell to, to German taxpayers that they have to pay for the telcos to take out some equipment that they've started especially as that would involve a degree of public communication that would be likely to pretty piss off the Chinese. i.e. we're going to swap them. The reason you're paying for this is because we don't trust China. Well, China's obviously going to be like, fuck you.
And that's a great story for the German press if they do it that way, and it's like you're paying for them to take out Chinese equipment, and by the way, it was their decision to use it, and the EU was saying in its toolbox years ago that this is all a bit dodgy. We recommend you don't use it.
So that toolbox, in fact, in my story about the EU one where I channelized Bloomberg.
You love the toolbox.
I mentioned the toolbox. Well, one of the reasons I like it is because it's a fudge position. It's a classic EU fudge position. And all of this messaging, as per the Bloomberg story, is like, well, maybe. So the toolbox, I think this is before you started working in this, but it was something the EU came out with when America was being quite belligerent and being quite hardline towards Chinese vendors. And obviously you can't, I think there's one or two exceptions in some rural networks still is there for Chinese vendors, but they've been trying quite hard to phase that up. Yeah.
Oh, there's the rip and replace.
Yeah,
fund.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe this look.
But on the whole, you'd be hard pressed to find anything with Huawei written on it in America at all.
Yeah.
And that includes phones, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't follow that, but
I think public sector employees can't have Huawei phones or something like that. Anyway, the state has done everything it can in the United States to phase Huawei out.
No one would have a Huawei phone because my mum tried to get one. It wasn't that the government said you can't go and buy Huawei phones. It's just that she got this phone delivered and we were trying to set up stuff, and because of the Google problem, it's like you couldn't get any apps on it, and this is useless.
I used to have a Huawei phone, I think 2018 or something, great. And they were brilliant. I had a P30 Pro, best phone I've ever had.
Yeah, and then this is one of the things that goes full circle with my slight distaste about how we demonize China, and I think there are probably plenty of substantial reasons. But there's a hypocrisy there because we say, well, China, Huawei just does what the Chinese government tells it. Well, Google phased out Huawei from full-fat Android because the US government told it to. So I just think there's
full-fat Android, I like
that. And, I mean, specifically what they did was withdraw the Play Store, which means that you can't get apps.
But is it more acceptable because that pressure is overt, whereas we don't know the full extent of
there is
the pressure?
There is that.
Fully skimmed Android is very unsatisfying, like the
skimmed
like the version that you put on your breakfast cereal, and it's like this is rubbish.
Yeah, exactly. It just tastes like water. No, that's a good question you pose, Zoe, to which I don't have a strong answer. Some of it's just aesthetic, isn't it? Some of it's just like, how is it communicated? But what I'm saying is, at the essence, if you strip that aesthetic level out, at the essence is a very similar thing, which is governments leaning on private sector to support their agenda.
But then surely if we are, well, the Western world is going to be anti-China technology, then that plays into so many other industries, not just telecoms, right?
Well, quite.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Automotive in
You're on the
particular.
half
Yeah.
in automotive,
Yeah.
and for
Well,
the Germans, that's a massive.
And the buses thing, to bring it back to your thing about the buses, all that stuff is pretty much what people have been saying about on the telecom side.
Exactly, that's one of the
it's
reasons I
exactly
flagged
the
it
same
up.
thing. Like
Similar
you've got
thing, the
software
OTA.
in there that you could shut down networks, you could take control of it. That's exactly the same case that's made for Huawei's equipment, and the reason that you shouldn't use it. And by the way, I'm not saying there's any connection between Huawei and the government. I mean, their position is there isn't, yeah? And that
That's their official position.
That's their official position, and fair enough. But there's always that fear that the government, because it's a Chinese company, can come in the same way that the US government can come and go to Cisco. We want you to do this. You just have to do it because you're an American company.
Or as we just discussed, they did to Google over Android. So
Exactly.
I'll read my final paragraph because it's totally germane to what you're saying. Final paragraph of my buses story. I said, the implications of this episode extend far beyond a few electric buses. One of the most enduring allegations against, quote, high-risk Chinese telecoms vendors such as Huawei is that at the behest of the Chinese state, they could use the OTA software updates to interfere with networks containing their kit. As with the buses, we're not aware of any such incidents actually taking place, but this will nonetheless increase the pressure in Europe and elsewhere to favour the precautionary principle. And I even linked to a European Union thing talking about the precautionary principle, which just means better safe than sorry, basically.
Well, that sounds like a COVID thing to me.
Yeah, well, actually, that was where it came up a lot, because that was better safe than sorry. Better not let kids go to school. Better not let people go to funerals. Better not let people leave the house than run the risk of more people getting COVID.
It's a wrong way to look at the precautionary principle, though, I think, in the case of COVID.
Well, I think in
Someone wrote quite a
hindsight,
good
it
essay on
turned
it.
out to be bollocks. But yeah.
Yeah.
So Zoe, I know that one of the people you represent is Samsung Networks. So you've got skin in the game, but I also know that means that you're probably going to tread lightly when it comes to commenting on this stuff. But yeah, I mean, does that? Do you know what? I'm not going to ask you to state your own opinion, but does it come up a lot in your day-to-day job? This geopolitical stuff. Is it something that you have to think about?
A little bit, yes. To be honest, mostly we're talking about Open RAN and the success or failure, as some may say, of Open RAN. Less so on the geopolitical
so you were like double
side,
exposed
right?
to that at Fuse, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, none of our clients are ever going to comment on geopolitics, of course. No matter what, not even comment on the budget, right?
We should
clients know.
talk to Nokia for that sort of thing these days.
We should give a shout out to Dan Warren and what's his name? Who he was with?
Evereth Flores, head of Samsung
Evereth
Networks
Flores.
Europe.
Sorry, Evereth, your name just slipped my mind. You're in good company on that one. So we bumped into Dan Warren and Evereth Flores in Dublin from Samsung Networks.
Yep, good guys.
And we also know their colleague Sunny, who we first met when she did in-house PR at Ericsson. Now she's a big wig at Samsung. Go on, Sunny.
Well, she runs the whole thing, I think.
Yeah, I know. Good for her. She's done well. Cool. Okay. Well, I think we're running out of time. We won't bother talking about any other stories. Ian, were there any last things on this sort of geopolitical stuff? I know you've written about it once or twice this week that you want to flag up. Or do you think we've
No.
more or less? No, that'll do. And I won't.
He's
and I
too
won't
warm
put,
in this room.
I won't put them in the awkward position of saying what's the Samsung Network's official position on the matter. So we'll wrap up there. So it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We're hanging out the whole time. People are going to start to ask questions the amount of time we're spending together.
I think they already did, didn't they?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I won't embarrass myself by some of the jokes I was making on Sunday night. But no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to have you here. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much.
And you're welcome back anytime. And if you've got nothing better to do, maybe we'll get a pint now.
I think so.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'll wrap it up there. We think we might have a guest next week, but I never trail it in case people have to bail at the last minute. So we think we've got a guest next week. If not, we'll just do just the two of us one. So thanks for listening, and make sure you join us for that one.